May 29th, and they're on, maybe they're not here because it's not on the agenda for
It's new business.
She thought
This is it. I'm just looking for attachment A.
Wait, this says 48.
Yeah, but that's it. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, this is the one. Oh,
See what I'm saying?
I got you. I understand.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, we all set? You all set? Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would everyone please stand for a short prayer and a salute to our flag? Almighty God, grant us the wisdom to make those decisions that are in the best interest of all of our residents. May the Heavenly Father of us all bless those who have given the ultimate sacrifice in service to our nation, and may He watch over and protect our servicemen and women now guarding the gates of freedom. Salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, Secretary, statement of publication.
Yes, Mayor, take notice that this council session meeting of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 11th day of June, 2018, has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan. Here. Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick.
Here.
Lembo.
Here.
Melendez.
Here.
Novak.
Here.
Okay, are there prior minutes of the mayor and council to be
There are none,
approved?
Mayor.
There are none. Then we'll move to the presentation by United Technology Partners. Are they here?
Yes.
If you have yours or if you don't have yours.
Good evening.
One more, gotta kind of tip it up.
Okay.
There you go.
We're good. Yeah, Jay's got it.
If you'd state your name and your company, please.
My name is Dan Aloya, A-L-O-I-A, with Unified Technology Partners. We were brought in to start to look at assessing some of the facilities within the borough of Sayreville, starting with a phase one of looking at the water supply and how to secure the water supply, namely the water treatment facility and the Dehernal reservoir. We had sent in a report that I know you've all received a copy of. When looking at it, there were some concerns. Now, just to take you back, we've been doing a lot of water protection over the last 15 years. It's been a big concern for different things, whether it's vandalism, theft, homeland security, terrorism, contamination, all the way on up. So the water supply has been designated one of the largest concerns in critical infrastructure, protecting our water supply, especially when it feeds so many residents. It's my understanding that you feed about 42,000 residents on a daily basis.
You need to hold the mic.
Oh, I'm
a little
sorry.
higher, Mike.
Okay. When we started with the water treatment plant and the adjacent building, which we designated as the water maintenance facility off to the west side there, we looked at the entire perimeter. We look at ways that people can enter and exit. We look at any natural boundaries that help to protect the area. We look at the existing fencing or lack of, the condition of it. And then we look at all the electronics or anything that they have existing within the plant itself, meaning the cameras or card access or any type of intrusion protection or anything like that. There was a lot of security already existing, although it seems very dated. And there's a lot of areas that we felt that should be a lot more secure than they are, especially with chemicals on site and such a broad area. We did a assessment, just a high-level design of what we thought would be a starting point of starting to protect the facility. There's a lot of pluses and minuses with this facility, and I'm still talking about the water treatment facility. A lot of the pluses are the, again, the natural boundaries and how far back they go. And some of them will be a lot easier protected just with some additional, maybe some Jersey barriers or boulders or something like that to protect against larger trucks coming in.
I'm just giving-
Then we looked at the gates and the tanks and stuff like that. So that's all within the report. On the Dehernal side, it's the same thing. The Dehernal was more of a challenge because there's so many entry points because of it's so embedded into a residential area. So that's a little bit more of a concern, that there's so many sites of points of entry. A lot of it comes down to a discussion as far as how we can change the culture of there's so many trespassers and how we can mitigate the trespassers and stuff like that. So without getting all the way through the report, I'd rather take some questions if there's anything that needs to be talked about. But before I do, one of the big things was to integrate a lot of these newer technologies into the existing technologies that the police have. so they can see the cameras, they can see the technology, they know when there's something out there, and they can respond accordingly.
Counsel?
So I'm Ricky Melendez. I'm the liaison for technology. Working along with Steve Grillo is the liaison for water. So I'm sure he has some questions. So I guess, just looking at the report, half of it's physical, where it's fencing, and the other half is technology.
Yeah.
Is it a possibility that we can do some of it now and some of it later? I mean, what's your opinion?
So the fencing is, a lot of times you go into these reports and you start to talk more so about technology. But the fencing was a concern, especially on the east side and the west side, because you have a ball field on the west side. I'm sorry, on the east side. You have a ball field that comes in, and it comes in fairly close. And the fencing that you have there, the fence line, has been a little bit more deteriorated. It's missing a lot of spots and stuff like that. So that's a larger area of concern. Now, on the opposite side, same thing. Again, because you're backing up to more businesses. There's a horse stable and stuff like that. So you're backing up to a lot of that. So that is also a large concern. When you get to more of like the south side, the north side, which is the very back there, you have such thick natural boundaries that can be more into a subsequent phase. And then the street level side is more of, you have pretty good fencing there. You're about 80% fenced in on that side with a nice solid fence on that side. So that's more on the physical layer. The IT layer or the technological layer is more of a concern. If you were to split and try to say which one should we do, I would do partial on the physical if we weren't able to do it all, and then do more on the technology side. Because then we could set up more of like virtual lines within the technology and then respond accordingly, and then keep a lot of the natural aesthetics of the facility.
So with some of the technology, can you talk about like the capabilities for police? Like, what would they be able to do?
So one of the largest concerns about cameras is who's watching them. And it comes down to like typically nobody, because it's just too much. You can only watch, there's studies about how much the human eye can actually watch as far as cameras, stuff like that. So you start to set up smarter systems, and this is not like something that drives the cost up. So it's really just enabling technologies that are coming standard in a lot of these cameras and stuff. And you say, okay, when you see something larger than this, larger than a deer or whatever, then populate it on the screen. When you see somebody going east to west, you populate it on the screen. When you see somebody cross a natural barrier, then it becomes easier to secure a facility because you're letting the technology work for you. When we set up parameters for, well, that person shouldn't be clocking in or using their card swipe from this time to this time. Okay, send a report. A lot of times people look at access control and card access, they look at it as keys. It's not keys. You've got to look at it as reporting. You got to see that person was not supposed to be there. That person was terminated 2 months ago. So again, the way technology has moved is you got to let it work for you. Once it's set up properly, and that's really what keeps us very busy, is that a lot of times you'll hire contractors and they're coming in, they're putting up cameras and they're walking away. And you're not utilizing to your best advantage. You're not fully securing that facility. So it's very important that we start the basis of what we want to do in the beginning and we make sure at the end that is exactly what we want to do. So that's one of the biggest concerns we have with these projects. So I hope I answered your question.
Steve?
Sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ricky. So the apparent question that jumps out to me is that obviously in creating a fencing barrier around these 3 lagoons, lakes, ponds, whatever you want to call them, you're limiting by design public access. Whether that's for benign public access, hiking and taking your dog, or people that want to actually do some damage. And so that's my first question to you is, can you affirm that the fencing that's proposed in this study would completely limit access to those 3 lagoons for the public? That's the understanding of a water director, and I just want to make sure that he and I are understanding the same thing that you think you're saying as well.
So The answer is yes, no. And the reason why I say to you yes, no, is because, again, a lot of times when these projects are done, day one, the answer is absolutely yes. But the maintenance, 6 months later, a year later, 2 years later, is really the area of concern. And it's really just how much we're going to keep on top of it, and people cutting through, or cutting whatever type of fence, or some other natural disaster takes down an area or something like that. So the answer is day one, yes, and that goes true with any type of technologies that you put in. Everybody's all happy in the beginning with technologies, but you must maintain this stuff. You must maintain your boundaries. You must change the culture of the way you do things. And I understand it's beautiful areas, but we need to start to limit who has access, where they have access, when they have access. And that's really just going forward.
Well, I certainly have a concern that we're limiting public access in what today is a nature preserve.
Yes.
Right? We'd basically be cutting off access to 50% of a nature preserve,
Right.
which defeats the point of the nature preserve. It's something that, and unfortunately, this has all been relatively quick. I know Councilman Melendez, Councilwoman Novak, and myself, we certainly need to sit down with the water director and just get his impressions. I've been going back and forth with him all week, but we need to sit as a group. Hopefully, we'll do that in the next 2 weeks or so. And this is a conversation that Ricky and I have had, is how effective is the fencing really, right? It's a very, very simple technology. You put up a chain link fence and somebody cuts through it, or a tree falls on it, or whatever. Mm-hmm. The cameras give us significantly more versatility. And I hope, and I know Ricky wants this as well, is that these are cameras that are being monitored, they're being triggered by the mechanism you were mentioning before. To me, that seems like a much more wise investment. It doesn't preclude the public from utilizing pristine property that they're utilizing today, and B, it doesn't cost us $750,000 to put up a fence when our money's probably better spent getting a more robust technology build out.
So
I'd rather spend money on good cameras than on an old chain link fence.
Yeah, I completely understand. It's a very populated wooded area. It's a very heavily populated wooded area. So you'd have to put up a lot of cameras in order to be as effective as a fence line. Now, a fence line has to be looked at two different ways. A fence line can preserve your natural your natural area as well. So if we limit access, and then we start to view those types of areas also that people are coming in, then people know that they can come in. There's points of entry, and it actually drops down the vandalism of the fence and the cutting of the fence because there's access.
Well, let me ask you
in
about
certain areas.
the quality of the fence. Is this a fence that's going to have motion sensor lights? Is it going to have, if somebody touches the fence after dark,
Right.
there'll be some sensor that goes back to the police department? Or are we just building a chain link fence?
So it was more.
Or what are the options?
Yeah, it was a heavier duty fence that we had budgeted in. Okay, these budgets are typically moving targets as far as how much, after you do a full engineering study and you start to look at the environmentals and stuff like that. And it was more of like a iron fence, like a 6 or 8 foot iron fence where it's tougher to cut. And then there's also newer fences out there which are much more dense than a chain link fence, which typically takes a lot longer to cut, or it's much, much more of a deterrent to try to cut through that as well. And some of them look a little bit more natural than others. So those are types of decisions you can, that are kind of like a moving target as far as like when you start to really get into a full engineering study and you recalculate your costs and you look at those areas and stuff like that. So it's all comes down to budgeting and where we can go with that. Now, you also talked about sensors and stuff like that. A lot of the fences now are coming, are in production that have like a channel through them. And you can run a fiber optic cable through them. And then if there's activity, it basically, let's say it just bends the light, and then you know that there's an active incident right there, and you can have the cameras turn to it and do this and do that,
Trigger an
action
event,
reaction
right.
stuff and whatever. That is absolutely an option, and it's probably a good option. I'm going to tell you why, is because we'll also use the same fiber optic cable for the bandwidth of the cameras that's needed. So that's again more in the engineering study, the full engineering study as far as how much of that we can do. The concern with your facilities now is that there's not much protecting it as far as those types of boundaries. So we have to start somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you really got deep into the woods, excuse the pun, and really looked at this, you could substantially raise that budget and start to look at those virtual fence lines, and you can really go off the charts with this stuff. So you got to start somewhere with this, and that's really what this.
So is there a way to maybe preserve some of the need, like
Sorry.
there's a way we can design around so we could
Absolutely,
preserve some of, like,
absolutely.
I think you just went with a
So,
blanket, cut everything
There's
off.
different things that you protect from, and a lot of it bounces back to almost how much contamination. You know, if to really affect a large population, you really need a larger tanker truck in there, and I'm sure that you'd, you know.
Yeah, I know some of that's in the report and you can't talk
Yeah.
about it, but
Yeah,
we're
so
basically trying to
you would need a
protect.
larger, a way to carry out.
Well,
the
let me just interrupt a second. This is not our potable water supply. You're aware of that?
I am, but I'm also whether you guys have a problem with contamination.
So I want to ask you a question about other municipalities that you worked in, if you've
Yeah.
encountered this. So Duhernal, right, is our main water supply.
Right.
If that were to go offline due to whatever incident, we would then purchase water from Middlesex County.
Right.
If it became prohibitively expensive, whatever it is, maybe that would last a week or two. We would then use these lagoons. But these lagoons, we haven't even tried to use the water in over 20 years. Our water and sewer director doesn't even know if the pipes work.
Right.
And so it's tertiary at best that we would use this. So I want to make sure that what I'm understanding, what's been relayed to me from our water and sewer director is what my colleagues understand, what Mr. Frankel and what you understand, because that I think adds also to the concern of spending $750,000. It's almost like putting a new engine in a car that's sitting on blocks in your backyard. It's a car, but you're not going to use it. And so I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page with that too, because it was something technical that I wasn't aware of until earlier this week, and I want to make sure that everybody else is.
Well, I would have to agree that it seems like the basic chain link fencing for that price, I mean, something that, $20 pair of bolt cutters from Home Depot can zip right through. It's not, I would rather see the money spent on technology, on cameras.
Oh, I would too, and that's really comes
Me,
down to the
fencing
discussion.
for that is
Right.
not cost effective.
I agree. Just to clarify a couple things, it was more of like a steel fence that we did the pricing based on, just so we're clear.
One of the
Not just
things
basic chain.
I need to interject here.
Go ahead, sir.
18 years ago, when we preserved this, you need to read the ordinance. This was for the recreational use of the people of Sayreville. We have scouting back there. There's a very organized fall hunting program back there. We have the horseback riding back there. Matter of fact, the former councilman who is responsible for bringing that from disrepair and from non-use to the current use that it has today is here in the audience. And anything involving this, I would ask that he be permitted to fully participate in this, and I will ask him to come forward when you're done to make his comments. But I think you need to first read the ordinance, which preserved the Capic Preserve,
Understood.
because it was a very explicit, strict ordinance on its use, and it was for the enjoyment of the people of Sayreville. So if all of a sudden we're going to fence half of it off, that's not for the enjoyment of the people of Sayreville. So this is not something that we want to take lightly. And on top of that,
Right.
we are people that by nature don't spend a lot of money on this kind of thing.
I fully agree, and I think it's a beautiful area, and it really just comes down to how you want to protect or how you want to limit other access, whether it's just, even if it's just vehicle access, and we start to talk about putting just some gates in some areas.
Well,
And-
Mr. Drawl, former Councilman Drawl, is probably our resident expert on that preserve, as he started the Conservation Corps, which were the children of Sayreville, which were the ones that cleared all the paths and made it what it is today. So he would really be the guy you need to consult with.
So if this is a nature preserve, why are we protecting the water? Why don't we
Beg your
just,
pardon?
if this is a nature preserve, why are we worried about the water?
Well,
It's-
if I
it's either or.
may,
I
if
mean,
I may,
that's
and
my
I guess
point.
when
I
you,
was understanding that this is
if I may, when you spoke to our water and sewer director,
Yes,
okay, there are DEP,
concerns.
not concerns,
That's, yeah, that's.
regulations,
Yes.
okay, that we need to do to protect our water source there, okay, our potable water source. When he came to you and said, we have a problem, okay, DEP, my understanding is telling him that certain areas are gonna need to be more than just security camera area, would have to be secured.
There was a large concern, and that's
Right,
really
and
what
that's
the
something, so I guess
conversation
my
was.
question to you is, your experience with DEP, because now we have a director
Right.
who says DEP has been leaning on him for 2 years, and we've held off, but he's getting now calls once every 6 to 8 weeks. What are you doing?
He
What are you
was,
doing?
he was concerned about protecting the perimeter. It was discussing the plant,
Right,
and it was discussing the 3 lagoons.
Right,
It was
but what I'm-
discussing the Dog Beach or something that the DEP has a major concern about,
Right.
and the contamination within the supply.
but I
chain.
just want everyone to understand that this is not to cut off access to the preserve whatsoever. These are rules and regulations that DEP is imposing upon us. And all I'm saying is that if we need to, I'm not saying we should, but if we have to change the ordinance to conform with DEP, we may have to look at that, or we're gonna be fighting DEP.
Well, that's the critical question. And I did not know this until a couple of days ago, which was that this is not part of our primary water source. And so I'm very glad we're having this discussion, because I think this is a lot to digest. The question is, if it's not water that we use, in fact, we don't even know if we could use it for drinking water, right? We don't know if the infrastructure is up
That's
to
not his
par.
bailiwick, though,
Pardon me?
Steve. That's not his bailiwick. Talk to Jay for a
No,
second,
no,
and then we
but,
can.
but I mean, we have to get to why we need to meet with Bob Smith and figure out what we learned today and compare it to what he's saying is, what's the point of protecting water that we can't drink anyway? I mean, that's what Ricky just said.
Well, that's right. If it's not, then why are we having this conversation? But it was my understanding from Bob, and his directive was to protect it. So now
Understood.
now
And
you're
so-
saying that it's not, then, okay.
I mean, obviously, this is not
I
just
think
a
the
plan for
largest
these
answer
lagoons.
to the question is why the DEP has a concern with it. You know,
We've listed it as potable water with the DEP, as far as, that's what I understand. The question is why?
Right.
We don't use it. So why spend probably $1 million?
But Steve, we do use some of that water not for drinking water. okay,
Exactly.
But for water to cool off some of our power plants.
Right.
and
But the
things like-
statute says protect it if it's drinking water.
Right, but.
I think
this
it's an
is-
important discussion
can I
to talk about spending $1 million.
Can I just ask for a clarification from Jay, because Jay may have an answer on this one. As
No,
far as,
you're correct.
right.
The lagoons are utilized,
Right.
and they provide water to AES. And if it turns out they couldn't be utilized, then you're taking water from Dewhernal, which is your primary source, to provide cooling water to the power plants.
Okay. You know, at this time, I do recognize Stanley Droll as our expert on the on the Capic Preserve. So Stanley, if you would come up, I would like you to participate in this. I know you've done, Terry, do we have another mic for
Okay.
Stanley?
Thanks a lot, Mayor.
Stanley, just for the record, if you'd state your name.
My name's Stanley Droll, 121 Bezette Street, Sayreville, New Jersey. I only came here because I found out about I'm mainly going to talk about the fencing at the lagoons. I got involved in the nature preserve and in politics because of the nature preserve. And I was heavily involved for 6 years as a councilman and voluntarily stayed on the water committee specifically for that. So the other part is I was well aware of the security issues as a councilman, and I'm also speaking with my background. I want to clarify, some people know me, some don't. I hold a degree from the West Point in national security. I also graduated at Naval War College with a degree in national security. I've worked 15 years, mostly overseas, with the British military and the U.S. and the German Bundesgrenzschutz on physical security and terrorism, and I have extensive training in that, NBC, nuclear, biological, and chemical. So I'm going to speak from both backgrounds tonight. The key issue is, after 9/11, and I also was a member of something called the National Committee on Readiness and Preparedness, where I went to New York, or I went to Washington for several days back in 2005, specifically on infrastructure protection. I think the mayor remembers that I had to leave for a few days to go down to Washington. So I have an extensive background, and again, I don't want to see us wasting money on something we really don't need. When you talk about water protection, there are three parts of it. There's the, you have to excuse me, I have a problem with, medical problem with the dryness. There are three parts to water protection. There's the raw water source, there's the physical plant, and the potable water within the plant, and then there's the protection of the finished water. If you remember, after 9/11, there was a big rush to close off reservoirs in New York City and California and various places. And what happened was, after the initial quick reaction, after about a year or two, every state started reopening the reservoirs to public use for the reasons we just discussed a little bit. Most of your reservoirs in every state, I know New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California, just to name a few, reopened their reservoirs and water supplies to recreational use because of, number one, the public outcry, and number two, the cost of trying to defend the reservoir for no reason at all. So you can go right now, and I verified this with the DEP this past week. I can still go fishing. I can scuba dive in some of the reservoirs. I can boat in many of them. The only restriction is what they call active recreation, the use of motorboats, for example, or vehicles. So I want to specify specifically that the physical security of the plant is a real problem here in Sayreville, the water plant itself. And that involves a much smaller security perimeter, a lot cheaper, and you could do a lot better physical security plan for the plant itself, a lot smaller footprint. Defending the reservoirs, number one, none of our reservoirs are fenced in that I know of in New Jersey. Do you know any?
I do.
Well, name a few.
Well, you have Newark Watershed, all theirs are fenced in. I'm sorry, Newark
Well,
Watershed.
they were fenced in for, mostly for vandalism, as you probably know, not for the threat of terrorism.
They stepped it up in the last couple of years. They've done a lot of stuff, but I see exactly where you're going with this, and
Yeah, and again, I agree. I just quick looked at your plan, and I think the physical security beef up of the plant is well needed and should have been done a long time ago. I'm specifically talking about the lagoons. The protection of the lagoons is a total waste of money, actually, and unless you're worried about just vandalism, and there's nothing to vandalize in the actual lagoon. I don't want to get into all the technical details. I'd be willing to sit down if this continues later and brief some of the things that I can tell you that are open source. But the threat, I can counter your chain link fence outside the plant, any place in the water system very easily. I'm sure you're aware of what I'm talking about with they always use the Mecklenburg Fire Department model, if you're aware of that, when the fire department accidentally, poisoned the water system in Mecklenburg. Well, you should look into that one.
Right.
Again, so what I'm saying is you're basically building what I would call the Maginot Line. You're going to spend a lot of money for nothing that could be defeated, and actually probably would be defeated if you were even a possible target, because a terrorist will target mainly big cities for a lot of technical reasons, but even if he were a target, it could be counted outside the lagoon. So I want to emphasize, I'm only talking about a waste of money on the lagoon itself, if you understand what I'm saying.
I do. And I think the concerns in the beginning were brought to us a little bit differently, and I think it's more of a matter of the DEP and how they're looking at this. And then, again, when looking at compromising a lagoon, it's more of, again, limiting controlling the access, even if it's just a little bit, to try to have people come down to certain areas to come in and
Well,
stuff like that.
that's why actually originally I tried to get fencing, if you recall. We did some outside fencing around the outer perimeter, if you went around the outer perimeter.
Yeah.
We put in that fencing years ago to block vehicular traffic, which you mentioned, or Ricky mentioned earlier. Because that was the real problem, was the vehicular traffic is the only real threat. And I agree, we should beef up those barriers on the perimeter. And even looking at this generally, if you and I can point out, if I was looking at this just as a security expert, you see what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Do you agree?
Yes, there's certain areas where I think we would agree upon.
I
that
would probably agree.
Absolutely need to be beefed up no matter what. And then the other areas of the lagoon are more of like a discussion internally and with the DEP and what they're going to require from you.
Yeah,
and how you have it classified.
I kind of agree. The two of us, both in the same business, came up with the same, just in 30 seconds, the same idea.
Exactly what you're pointing to.
And we both would agree, I think, from our backgrounds in security. And again, the problem with the access to lagoons and the lakes is you have to balance cost, public access. In a case like this, like many of our reservoirs in New Jersey, you want public access to the reservoirs for the right reason. And I'll finish off real quick, is one of the reasons we opened up, for example, the hunting program. We had a serious problem early on with people trespassing for nefarious reasons. This goes back to my old security training. Bad things happen where good people aren't able to be there. As we opened up the hunting program, very limited. People are all registered with the town, checked with the police. You cut back on the number of people doing bad things. Horseback riding was opened up again, so you know where I'm driving at.
Well, again, and those areas, if we can kind of regulate how people are entering and exiting those areas, including firing range or down to the stables and stuff like that.
Right.
You can monitor exactly who's coming in and who's coming out with less money and
I
technology.
want to jump in real quick.
And the last part is on the water. I think this is extremely serious. You have to drill down on this DEP thing, because I had the same things brought to me as a councilman when I opened this up. DEP, I'm sure from everything I know from my work down in Washington, is the DEP, if they were talking about reservoirs or cisterns, those are in the middle within, for example, larger cities, where they have the cisterns and the holding ponds within the plant.
Right.
Because that's water that has entered the system for cleanliness, for processing. So these, if this is mislabeled as potable water, that could be part of our problem right here, because that's not potable water. That's raw water, just like the South River water we bring in. So there is no DEP regulation that requires the fencing in of reservoirs and water supply areas. That doesn't exist.
So it sounds like we need further clarification on what the purpose of these lagoons are, right? So
I think-
if there is a way around this, maybe we only do partial security for entry. We leave it open, but I think that's what Dan was trying to say earlier, that, and maybe there's some mixed signals from DEP. I mean, you have experience, and we need to confirm that.
Again,
So-
we went through this. This was the same mixed thing we had when we opened, because before we opened it up and spent the money, we went into all this. We met with the state DEP, we met with the county Green Acres.
When was that?
That was around, what, 2004 or 5?
Okay, so I guess we need to just confirm with today's rules and standards, and if that's the
Yeah.
case.
In
that
fact,
could
the
be part of
rules
study.
didn't change. In fact, the rules have lessened a little bit because of this real threat that I think you might know a little bit about. So again, I'm only really up here to prevent us from spending a lot of money for no reason,
Appreciate that.
and to make sure that the public does have access. Because if you put up an 8-foot fence around the lake, it basically disrupts the entire purpose of a nature preserve. Plus, you actually take away the water source for a lot of the wildlife, the larger wildlife.
So just to jump in, and not to toot our own horn, but I think this is a pretty nice example of good government. Ricky did a really comprehensive job on this, and that we're only talking about one issue in a really big report is good. We're also, I think, asking very important questions of a technical expert. But I would like to, in the interest of everybody's time tonight, maybe just ask to have a committee meeting on the 25th or so. I would like, Dan, if we can make sure that Bob Smith, it's really pointless if he's not there, but I think there's a lot of questions that I certainly don't know the answers to and my colleagues don't know the answers to, but, and I understand what you did. You did sort of a 30,000-foot look at just fencing out these entire
Just
lagoons.
based on the parameters we were given, so.
Right, and so, I mean, if we can think a little bit more creatively about how interactive these cameras can be. Ideally, you don't want to build a giant silver ring of fence, right?
No.
We want to have cameras. We want to maybe use those fences strategically to limit vehicle access. We definitely need the water and sewer director's input here to answer some of these open-ended questions. So I want to thank Ricky. I want to thank you for putting this together. We just need to flush this out a little bit more. And if you'd be amenable to coming back,
Sure.
We'd like to ask some more questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
What do we want to do
Thank you.
before the 25th? We have, what, a 6? 5:45?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Stanley, if you don't mind, that report is confidential. I don't know if you left it there. It's, thank you. Oh, you could pass it to the young lady. Thank you.
Not that I'm aware of, Mayor.
I am returning Resolution 2018-157, a resolution of the Borough of Saraville in the County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, authorizing the mayor to execute the settlement agreement with the Fair Share Housing. And I am returning it as a veto for the following reasons. When the original order came through, there was no, the financial onus was on the developers. Now it is on the boroughs. It's not an the biggest problem for me is that we had zero cost before. Now, in a worst-case scenario, we can have upwards of $19 million. Worst-case scenario. The other thing that I have great difficulty with is that we're creating a low-income cluster. And before I came on the council, I was the chairman of the Housing Authority, and we have other low-income clusters in Saraville. And what was happening was, to some degree, it was becoming generational. It was, the original purpose, I think, was to help people get back on their feet, and what was happening was, it was really encouraging people to never leave. And those are the two primary reasons why I'm returning this as a veto. The council, of course, does have, can override the veto, but personally, I can't sign it. So what is the pleasure of the council?
Well, I would just like to, go ahead, Dan.
Is this a resolution or an ordinance?
He's talking about the resolution.
Can you override it? I mean, can you veto a resolution? Or just an ordinance?
Dan, I believe that you have the right to pass a resolution authorizing the borough administrator to execute the agreements if the mayor doesn't sign it.
But it's not a vetoable document.
You have the right to vote for a new resolution authorizing the borough administrator to execute the agreement.
And we would do that in the form of a motion?
Yeah, it's just a motion to, what it is, it's a motion authorizing the borough administrator to execute the agreements with National Lead, Fair Share Housing, and K-Land Corp.
Mayor, are you Are you doing that for all resolutions that
Well,
were
if-
before
if-
you,
if
or
I-
just the 157?
If I veto the fair share housing, then it precludes the other two.
Okay, so that would be in response to all the three, just
Well,
because they're
preclu-
broken
it
out and they're numbered
precludes them.
separately.
It's all part of the same.
So what I would recommend is that a resolution be made, or a motion be made, authorizing the Borough Administrator to execute the agreements necessary for fair share housing, National Lead, and K-Land Corp.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about the legality of it? So why not the council president? Wouldn't that be, why the BA and not the council president?
Well, again, typically, any and all agreements can be executed by the Borough Administrator or authorized by the Borough Administrator, or if authorized by the Mayor and Council, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, I understand what I listened to what the mayor had to say and his reasons for his veto or his refusal to sign. We'll use that term, that's fine. I think that you're specifically referencing the River Road redevelopment site in that, when you're talking about the cost that was to be incurred and the fact that we'd be creating a pocket of affordable housing for individuals. And what I actually liked about that particular site, and that Sarah signed on for, was the fact that that was also going to be a veteran preference housing as well. And that was something that was very important to me, because currently we don't have any of that listed in any of our affordable housing opportunities here. So in vetoing that particular, all these resolutions, the Fair Share Agreement, you would be basically vetoing the ability for our veterans to have access to affordable housing. With that being said, I would like to make a motion then, as the attorney has stated, in order to rescind those resolutions and create a resolution authorizing, it could be the business administrator, it could be myself, whichever, it doesn't matter to me. So I make a motion then that the ordinances, that the resolutions, 2018-157, 2018-158, 2018-159 be rescinded, and that new resolutions authorizing either myself or the business administrator sign those resolutions in order to move forward with our settlement agreement as reached through our attorneys.
Is there a second?
Excuse me, second.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Last meeting's resolutions.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Lembo,
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes, and I'd just like to, with comment, the whole idea of doing this was to be, we still had to come up with that 785 number. And by having this building, I think Sarah came up to the plate. Vicky worked very hard on this. It is going to be veterans, which is greatly needed in this town. And by doing this, we were able to cut the numbers back of housing at the other areas. Thank you.
If I can just piggyback off of what Mary said, and I wasn't going to go into that much detail at this point, but I will only because the subject's been broached. In addition to that particular site, with that veteran preference, we were able to reach through these agreements that were worked out with the other developers and with Jeff Serenian and his team, almost a 30% reduction in overall market rate units. We were still able to achieve the affordable housing units that we were required to after Susan Gruhl, the planner that we brought in after removing Mr. Leon Cavello. She found so many affordable housing units that were currently here within the town that weren't being credited to us. So we were able to now take credit for what we had, reduce the number of overall units by 30%. We were able to work out an agreement with these developers and actually now have an opportunity for at least one site to possibly be now obtained as open space, even though we pushed and tried extremely hard to obtain 2 sites. And we now have the possibility to at least get 1 site into our open space parcels. In addition to that, and I'll speak on the National Lead site known as that Melrose parcel, That site was originally slated for over 160 units. The concept plan that was presented before us called for all of them to be 4-bedroom units. Through negotiations, and I will say I wish that negotiations worked a little bit more in our favor, but we were able to reduce that particular site down to only about 130 units. When you do the quick math, I'm a language arts teacher, but to eliminate 30 units of 4 bedrooms, that's over 120 bedrooms. Can you imagine the number of students just based on that reduction that would potentially be coming through our already overcrowded schools, and the tax burden that that would place on us when the Board of Education now has to find ways to expand the building potentially, bring in additional teachers, and even just supplies for those kids. In addition, we were able to work out an agreement with Kaplan where we were able to reduce their number of overall units down to 300 among 2 sites. We were able to bring densities a little bit more in line with the way they should be. These agreements, and again, I would love for our negotiations to have gone better, but as we all know, our backs were against the wall because of the way the previous agreement was signed off on. This to me, and I love softball, I would have loved for this to have been a grand slam. I'm considering this to be a home run at least compared to where we were. A 30% reduction. The possibility of obtaining open space. I only say possibility because we have to wait for a phase 1 study to be done to make sure that that property is in fact not contaminated. And then in the event that it is, we would have to go into a phase 2, and that's all outlined and detailed. We had Sarah step up to the plate, be able to provide additional affordable housing that wasn't going to increase densities, actually reduced it. We were able to get something for our veterans and making them a priority here, which is something we've never been able to do with all of the redevelopment that we have done. This, to me, was a very, very smart, very difficult, very conscious, very thought-out process. And I, for one, am very happy that my council members agreed that these need to be resubmitted, put forward, so that we can try and do the best that we can for the residents here. I wish we could have done more, but I do believe in my heart this was the best that we were going to get in these situations. So thank you.
Okay, next item, Terry.
At this point, do we need those resolutions for today?
You just
Well,
made,
okay.
so I'll type them up and we'll bring it to the next meeting. The next matter is the redevelopment. You want me to explain that? This, the next matter up was brought to our attention this morning that the River Road Development Ordinance should have been 175.01, and that .01 was not addressed in the ordinance. And there were a couple other tweaks that we had to do that when it was drafted by, I believe, Ms. Gruhl, out of abundance of caution, we are adding 175.01 for adequate description, and then also delineating the specific lots and blocks so that there's no issues. We went over it with Mr. Cups today and the Borough Administrator and Mr. Serenian. So what I'm asking, and I've also spoke to Mr. Rogoff, he signed off on it, and he also okayed, who's the attorney for the planning board. So what I'm asking is that we make a motion to rescind 415-18, and then we'll adopt it, we'll introduce it again at, I guess, at the bottom of the meeting.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's
So
correct.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes, with comment, I just want to clarify, that will be renoticed, obviously, as a result of those changes.
We're in the process of doing that.
Okay.
And we have, and we verified we have ample time.
Oh, that's perfect. I just wanted to make sure we are continuing with the transparency. Thank you.
Lembo,
Yes.
Melendez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item, Terry.
We have the introduction of the following ordinances. Ordinance number 416-18, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7 of Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Saraville, Section 12-1, State Uniform Construction Code.
Who introduces the,
Planning and zoning.
Pat?
Yes, Mayor. I move the ordinance be adopted on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing be held on June 25th.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Lembo,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Melendez.
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 417-18, an ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7 of the Revised General Ordinances of the Borough of Saraville to amend Section 7-3.7, handicap parking spaces in streets.
Again,
That's
Councilman Lembo.
Mayor,
Councilman
I don't
Lembo?
know, we missed one.
Actually, this should come under public safety.
Yeah,
This
that's
is public
Buchanan.
safety.
yes, this is me. I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing be held on June
This one we
25th.
skipped.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo.
Yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Novak.
Yes.
Mayor, I think we skipped something.
What's that?
I think 414-18?
That's on the next page. I have it on the next page.
I have the new one.
On the second page, second page on the top, it's 41818.
Those ordinances were already introduced.
Oh.
413, 414 were already introduced.
413-18 is Kalen, Camelot 1 and 2.
Already introduced, just for your benefit, the hearings.
The public hearing is on the
For
25th.
your benefit, that's all.
Oh,
They're appearing just for information.
It's a little messy. It's okay.
Sorry.
I shouldn't have said messy, Terry. I apologize.
Ordinance number
brain is messy.
418-18, an ordinance adopting the River Road redevelopment plan amendment. That is planning and zoning.
And again, this just reminds everyone, this is the cleanup that I
This is
just
the
told
correct one,
Right.
the corrected
Proctor law.
ordinance.
Absolutely. I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law, and a public hearing be held on June 25th.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Lembo,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick.
Yes.
Melendez.
Yes.
Novak.
yes.
Okay, are there any appointments tonight?
I have more ordinances, Mayor.
More ordinances.
Okay. Right.
Ordinance number 419-18, bond ordinance providing for the improvements to various parks in the Borough of Saraville, New Jersey, appropriating $1,417,000 therefor, and authorizing the issuance of $1,346,150 bonds or notes of the borough for financing part of such appropriation. Administration.
Mayor?
Go right ahead.
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law for a public hearing to be held on June 25th at prevailing time.
Second.
Roll
Second.
call?
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo.
Yes.
Melendez.
Yes.
Introduction of ordinance number 420-18, bond ordinance providing for various improvements in, by, and for the Borough of Saraville, New Jersey, appropriating $1,322,000. Therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,255,900 bonds and notes of the borough for financing part of such appropriation.
Mary?
Mayor, I move the ordinance be approved on first reading, advertised according to law for a public hearing to be held on June 25th at prevailing time.
Second.
Roll
Mayor,
call?
I'd just like to, okay, I'm sorry.
Comments?
I just wanted to thank Denise and Dan and Bernie for working with me today. This is my 13th year up here, and I've only missed 2.5 meetings. Last meeting was the one I missed, and I should have done something with this at the last meeting. So they worked very hard with me today to get these ordinances prepared so that we can get the work done in the borough in a timely manner. Thank you.
Councilpersons Novak,
Yes.
Buchanan,
Yes.
Grillo,
Yes.
Kilpatrick,
Yes.
Lembo.
Yes.
Melendez.
Yes.
Consent agenda resolutions, Mayor.
Did we do 420?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
At this time, I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on consent agenda items. Are there any questions or comments? Being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I move
Council
the-
President?
Thank you, Mayor. I move the public hearing be closed and the consent agenda resolutions be approved on roll call vote.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak?
Yes.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
You got it
Print
backwards.
interchangeable.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Novak?
Yes.
Following resolution to be read in full. Doesn't matter. Resolution 2018-218, be it is hereby resolved that the proper borough officials are hereby authorized to award contract to Murray Paving and Concrete of Paramus, New Jersey for the Saraville Veterans Field House restroom restoration in the borough of Saraville through the Educational Services Commission of New Jersey from Tyrus Inc. at 5049 Industrial Road from Farmingdale, New Jersey, contract number 16/17-54, in an amount not to exceed $144,985.31.
Larry?
Open to the public first, Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Open to the public for questions or comments on this resolution, 218. Are there any questions or comments? Being no questions or comments, I'll entertain a motion.
I just have one question. Denise, do we have funds in place for this? Yes. We do, okay. Mayor, I move the resolution be approved on roll call vote. Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak?
Yes.
Buchanan?
Yes.
Grillo?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Yes.
Okay, with that, Borough Engineers report? Borough Attorneys report?
No report.
CFO's report? No report, Mr. Mayor. Okay. I'm going to open the public portion for questions or comments on any and all issues. Steve, if you would.
Just want to make sure.
Steve Malineski, 28 Scarlet Drive in Parlin. Two things, Council. I noticed there's a planning board meeting coming up on Wednesday, the 13th. In the past, I've asked, especially with all the confusion and the going back and forth between the planning board, COA, and everything that we've been doing, we tried to get some transparency for the residents on what's going on at the planning board versus what's going on at the council. There seems to be some, oversight that maybe I'm just missing. But I've asked for it before, maybe trying to get some representation here occasionally for important items. And tonight, we went through some of the COA things that are really critical to the borough and all the residents in the town. Having said that, I noticed that we're rewriting some of the ordinances that everybody here voted for tonight. Basically, 18, all the COA proposals that were out there.
If I might, Steve, it's Michael.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, we're not rewriting it, we're just specifically describing the lots and block.
Right, so we are modifying it slightly.
Well, no, it's not it's just adding a .01 to adequately describe the lot and block. So we're not writing the substance or the content or the direction of it.
Okay, that doesn't change what I'm trying to get at. Maybe I'm just saying it.
No, and I can also tell you that Mr. Lembo had requested, and I got it, that's why I was checking my email, but Mr. Serenian will also be at the planning board meeting to answer any questions to ensure. So the planning board, if they have questions, Mr. Serenian or Mr. Edwards will be at the meeting.
Right, and then that's my concern is how do we get transparency and cohesion between council and planning board so that we don't have any missteps, especially we seem to be getting very close through all your hard work to getting closer to coming to closure on COA and keeping the cost down for the town. So that's really my question, and I think even going forward, it'd be very beneficial to the residents to hear occasionally, especially on critical issues, if a representative from some of the critical committees would come here on important issues and just make their case like United Technologies did tonight for the security. That would be really helpful and make it more clear to the residents on what's going on, what are they thinking, where are they going, so that they're not going left and we're going right, or thinking they're going right. Misunderstandings and that. So that's my concern.
Yep. if I might address that. So again, you're going to have Mr. Serenian there on Thursday, or Mr. Edwards. I know that Ms. Gruhl or a representative from her office will be there. So that, I think that will add to the cohesiveness that you're looking for, and also create and amplify the transparency between the planning board and the mayor and council.
That would be perfect.
Yeah.
And Steve, just to see you know, I'm just looking on the website. The agenda's up there for Wednesday's meeting.
Excuse me?
The agenda for this upcoming meeting on Wednesday is on the website? Okay, so.
Yep. No, I got it.
And it's on the calendar.
That's why I brought it up.
Got it on my phone.
It's on the phone, too, because that's where I printed it from. Second, I wanted to thank the committee for getting the bridges in the park, in Kennedy Park, done. I made my first trip through there last week, and they're very nice. Really great, finally, to be walking around. Used to jog around the lake. However, I want to say one thing. I just noticed one thing that didn't look right. There's steel girders going across the bridges, which are great. They're all rusted. So somehow or another, they were not either finished, polished, or they're all rusted. So I had my hand on it and like, whoa. You know, and I just said, they were beautiful. And I was like, great. And I don't mean to put it down. It's a great effort. I'm glad we got it done. But just take another look if you haven't seen it already. They're all rusted
Jay?
up from the rain.
Mayor, if I might, that is the way they're designed. They're designed just like you have on the highways where the guide rails will eventually rust over time. That's how the bridges are set up. So it's no maintenance on behalf of the borough. It's designed that way, so it was constructed as designed.
So they're constructed to rust immediately.
Correct. If you look at the bridge over where the Pizza Hut used to be, there's an older bridge. You get an idea what it looks like. That's the same type of finish.
Okay, just my thought. But thanks again for getting the bridges. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, Charlie.
Would you like some water?
Charlie Lukey, 324 Oak Street, Melrose section of Cerebral. I'd like to bring it to your attention that on the busiest intersection in Melrose, there's a condition, somebody's going to get killed. That pole is about 20 degrees off center. It has 5 major wires on one side, 4 go on the other. 3 power lines across the top. When that thing's coming down, somebody's going to get hurt. Jay, maybe you can send your mob squad, them 2 little guys with their badges, down there and look in the air and see what's wrong.
Yeah, I'm sorry, which intersection did you say?
The intersection of Laurel and Ridgeway. That pole is so dry rotted, it's starting to splinter, and believe me, maybe the next rain it might come down, but somebody better go down there and look at it before somebody gets killed. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Janice?
Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue in the Melrose section. I just want to say we have an audience here with people from the town and people from the section of Melrose, and I'd like everybody from Melrose or people that are opposed to the resolution 158 and the ordinance for the national lead property to raise their hands, please. All right, we really feel like we've been sold out. We really feel like this settlement is all in favor of national lead. We're only legally required to supply 785 units. Why are we constructing and using credits to come up with a total of 792? In my math calculation, 785 plus 7 for the National Lead Cross Avenue property equals 792, which is a 7-unit surplus of affordable housing. Okay? It's not going to make any difference to the trees, wildlife, whether there's 164 units or 132. Okay, bedrooms and townhouses, the original plan, I saw a concept had 3-bedroom townhouses. Whichever way you look at it, it's not significant to what we're losing in 22 acres almost of natural woodlands and wildlife. It's not going to make any difference when the deer and the wild turkeys and every other living creature and the trees and bushes that provide oxygen to humanity are all gone. So it's really a lousy deal when, if you look at it, and read the ordinance carefully, which I don't see any copies of the final ordinances up here for people to look at because they've been changing all week. We've been trying to get Oprah, Open Public Records Act to get the settlements, which are, Michael Edwards, the attorney, said we'd have by Wednesday, the 30th of May. Today is June 11th. We don't have copies of the final settlements. There's ordinance changes regarding what trees they have to plant and various things, and there's no copies up here for the public to read. Okay, only people within 200 feet got certified letters just like on Friday. Okay, so this is not very transparent, and it's poor negotiating. It's all in the contractor's favor. It's all in National Lead's favor. It really shouldn't matter to National Lead who pays for the property. Okay? If the contractor and National Lead have a sales agreement, then maybe the town needs to see what we can do to negotiate to have the contractor back out of it. This settlement gives right of refusal to any, it doesn't give, I guess what I'm saying is that if the contractor backs out, the town should get the first opportunity to buy the property. It gives all of these zoning rights, and there's no like first right of refusal to purchase the property given to the town. This is really a poorly negotiated contract, and I'm not a lawyer. Okay, everybody in this town has a right to see the settlement agreement and see what a lousy deal it is. Okay, for the acre of land the town is giving up, okay, did we not have the residents vote on it, I believe in 2015's November election, not to sell it? Is it legal now to give it away for nothing? I asked what it was valued at. Did anybody come up with the appraisal value of the town's acre?
I believe it was something like $179,000.
All right, well, you know, if National, and you say you're giving it away for National Lead's $175,000 legal fees. Okay, at a lawyer's rate of maybe $500 an hour, you're saying with an average work week, say of 35 hours, that they had an attorney work 10 weeks on this. I mean, I think their legal fees are overstated and excessive, even going at a high rate of $500 an hour. And we shouldn't be giving away property that gives them the right to better utilize their property without a better negotiation deal. Maybe a few acres of this should be set aside for open space if we can't reserve the whole 22. Maybe we should negotiate better. This is really a poor deal. So within 30 days of signing the settlement agreement, we have to give away the deed to the acre. But they don't give over just a right away, not like we own Cross Avenue. They don't give away the right to Cross Avenue until they get a certificate of occupancy, okay, for the first units. Okay, so all of this could take years until a town has Cross Avenue. What kind of condition is Cross Avenue going to be in during this construction? All right, and it also talks about emergency exits and what have you. So is it deemed that this is going to be, there's going to be an emergency exit somewhere? If so, where? And who's going to own right away to that? It's not even safe for the people living in this development not to have another exit, just like it isn't safe for the Melrose residents who are already living there not to have another exit. I mean, this is really poorly negotiated. I mean, why are we so afraid of National Lead or Bob K. or PRC or Rockville LLC, whoever the developer is? Okay, you know, it winds up being profit and greed. Okay, this is really ridiculous that money is going to destroy a wooded area with wildlife. And, you know, if we go back to original residential zoning, Susan Gruhl said it was going to be between 30 to 40 units. Going back to master plans dating to 1998, it was a specially zoned area to, I don't know if I put this, sorry, I didn't bring all my paperwork up. This plot of land was supposed to be in a planned development with open space, low-density residential cluster. The new land use in the 1998 master plan was supposed to be that this land use category featured special land use considerations for preserving natural features and environmentally sensitive areas, and to provide buffers from nuisances by requiring a minimum of 40% common open space component as part of the planned development. This planned development permits single-family detached residential development. It does not increase overall density of development and proposes to reduce density. Okay, now 1998, I lived here. I've lived here since 1995. I was never even notified of this master plan. There was a master plan prior in 1986. I moved in with my husband in 1985. Okay, what is the notification laws, Mr. DuPont, on how the public is supposed to be notified on these things?
Typically, property owners within 200 feet of the designated property pursuant to a it is, can you hear me? Pursuant to the tax assessor's list, the tax assessor verifies that list, and based on that list, the borough clerk then mails out the notices pursuant to the property owners within 200 feet on that list.
All right, well, then why was my husband and I not notified when we moved in 1985? The 1986 master plan has the property listed as C1 and R7. Okay, so National Lead, when we moved in, was operating. There was a blue water tower, there was a brick building that was removed. Mr. Cornell, what is C1 versus R7?
C1 was a commercial zone,
Mm-hmm. And R7?
residential.
Okay, so in 1986, it was C1, R7. Then in 1998, it's R7. And it's suggested by Susan Gruhl's firm in that 1998 master plan, which was adopted on May 5th, that it go to this special category. But I don't know that it ever did, because it's still R7. But we're within 200 feet, and we were never notified of it being changed from totally C1 and R7 to totally R7. And then this whole fiasco with COA and what have you, when were we really supposed to be notified that the master plan was changing in 2006 and that this was all happening? Honestly, because I've asked the question of the planning board, I've asked it here, and everybody points to the other body. So when were we really supposed to be notified?
It should have been done when the planning board and this is the argument that we went back to in February when Mary, like I've given her credit a million times, when we determined through that February meeting, when we finally got the full detailed write-up plan of what was being negotiated through the planning board for COA, and we said, whoa, Mary called me and said, did you read this packet?
Right, and when were the residents supposed to be notified?
Well, I think
Right.
we went through this a lot with you. And
Should
when
it have
the-
been 2016?
It should have been during that time period that the planning board, that Larry Sachs, and that Leon Cavella were bringing this plan forward to either entity, really the planning board.
All right, so maybe
That's
the
when that should
residents
have been
need a
done.
lawyer because our rights were violated.
But I will say this, Janice, I can't speak for 1980 and 1998. I will say this, though, regardless of what those zonings were back then, when COA came into effect, and this took me, how many months to finally get an answer. The courts stated that in reference to COA, you could not have exclusionary zoning, meaning you could not turn around and say, we can't build affordable housing because we have property that is zoned either commercial or something else. And that triggered the judges to say, you have to rezone if you can't reach your affordable housing mandate with the current residential. That's
Okay,
the thing
so then why is
sucks.
that planner still employed by the planning board? Why are our tax dollars going to somebody who we should be suing for malpractice?
Wait a minute. Janice, you know this already. When we discovered what a poor, and I would rather use more colorful language, what a disastrous job the previous planner did in reference to the plan that we were being tied to, we as a council got him out. And
Right.
we brought in Susan.
understand
But I hate
that.
to tell you this, Janice. We can only control here as a council who our borough planner could be. The planning board still retained him as a planner.
Which is pathetic. It
So,
really is pathetic that our tax
everything-
dollars are going to pay such incompetency, negligence, and malpractice. Do planners not have an ethics code? Mr. Grillo?
No, there's not an ethics code like a doctor or a lawyer, but.
Councilman, you have to use your microphone, please.
Well, you're an accountant. You have an ethics code, do you not? If you're a CPA or a certified municipal accountant, lawyers do.
Ma'am, I do.
Exactly. I mean, our court case should also be including an appeal based upon incompetent and negligent professionals. Whether there's appointees involved, elected officials involved, volunteers involved, hired professionals involved. Okay, this property would have been built with a whole different concept. 30 to 40 residential houses are what support 7 of affordable units. All right, so get National Lead to go back to 30 to 40. And go to the right.
Janice,
Well,
we
maybe
would
we
love
should
to.
go for broke on this ordinance.
I think
and
we did,
not
though.
pass it and really get the judge to see all sides of it and do some negotiating with the developer. I mean, this developer must be having some say in this ordinance because this ordinance is so different than what originally came out last May. We're talking about, now there was a change this week about signage. This is not National Lead negotiating or the town about signage for the development. This has got to be the contractor getting involved in what they want for signage. Why does the contractor get such preferential treatment? I mean, what is going on here? Who is benefiting from this greed? Okay, it is wrong if we're living based upon doing special favors, political contributions, whatever. You know, people say that politics are corrupt, and I didn't really believe it. People said, why are you bothering with this? You're wasting your time, and I didn't really believe it. Yes, we've affected some change, and yes, I'm very happy that some property is being purchased for open space that will be added to JFK Park, but all of this talk of contamination is really a joke, because if it is contaminated, then why were you building on it? If it is contaminated, why can't the wildlife and the trees stay on it? Okay, it can't be too contaminated for the town to buy if you were going to build on it.
Listen, Janice, first let me say one thing. I have no idea what you're referencing as far as changes to any ordinance and anything regarding signage.
I went line by line with the ordinance that we received here on Tuesday, May 29th, with what came in the certified letter versus what came via the Open Public Records Act faxed to us. The Open Public Records Act fax matched the certified letter, which did not match the May 29th. So maybe you guys should sit there with all 3 copies and go line by line, word for word, like I did, and highlight it all. Okay, because there are changes in the trees that the developer has to put in. So they're going to come in and knock everything down. And now the change from one ordinance version to the next, they get to put less expensive trees in. And then now National Lead has to replace the trees if they die within one growing season or 1 year. But Kaplan, on their ordinance, is a little bit more generous. He replaces the trees if they die within 2 growing seasons or 2 years.
Are you referencing, because I'm trying to follow
Oh,
where you are.
you want me
No,
to
no, no.
highlight the ordinance? I mean, I spent a lot of time going line by line by line with it all.
Janice, no,
Yeah.
I'm trying to ask you a question. Are you looking at the settlement agreement that the mayor signed in comparison to what?
I'm looking at what we got last Tuesday's meeting, May 29th, okay, compared to, I mean, if you go, compared to what came in the certified letter.
There's nothing changed from what came in the certified.
Oh, yes, there is.
There shouldn't be.
What ordinance are you, what ordinance
The
number are you talking
National
about,
Lead
Janice?
Ordinance. There definitely is.
Such as,
Okay.
is that
Gonna go,
ordinance?
such as.
Yeah, what ordinance number are you referring to, Janice?
Okay, 414-18. Okay, for instance, on page 4, I'm just going to go one for instance. Design standards, any deviation from the following standards shall trigger waiver relief. What is waiver relief, by the way?
What page are you referring to?
Page 4, ordinance 414-18.
And what paragraph?
Okay, under design standards, number 9. Any deviation from the following standards shall trigger waiver relief. On the May 29th meeting, it details that a minimum of a 10-foot planting strip within building setbacks required by the provisions of section D.C. above shall serve as a buffer area. Okay, the 10-foot minimum planting strip shall be situated in that portion of a building setback that is farthest away from other particular building. Okay, then the new one with the certified letter details a minimum of a 10-foot planting strip within and forming part of each building setback required by the provisions of section 4.c above shall serve as a buffer area.
Isn't that what you just previously read?
That's one sentence of it. I'm continuing. The 10-foot minimum planting strip shall be situated in the portion of a building setback that is farthest away from any particular building. The next paragraph regards stormwater facilities. And the next one regards the buffer areas shall be planted with evergreens and other vegetation to promote optimum year-round screening. Let me go to a more meaty one.
So, Janice, are
and
you
that was
saying,
same
are
thing,
you saying that there's a deviation in any of those 3 paragraphs you just read to me as opposed to what you got in the mail?
Yeah, there is. If you go word for word, and then I'm going to continue with the signage. Okay? So if you continue down with the signage, at one point then, there was going to be a, if you really look word for word, there's different provisions, and maybe it doesn't sound that different when I'm reading it. But look under signage. Okay, on page 4 of the original one, and let me find signage on the certified one. Signage, okay? There was one signage. It's on the new one. It is page 5, paragraph 5, which is a whole brand new paragraph that did not exist in the May 29th one. Now there is, as an alternative to one double-faced freestanding sign permitted by the provisions of section 9.b.2, 2 single-sided entrance wall signs are permitted. Each sign shall not exceed 24 square feet. The height of any sign on a retaining wall shall not exceed 6 feet. All other signs shall not exceed 4 feet in height. That paragraph does not exist in the May 29th one at all. And I don't see where National Lead cares about signage. So,
Janet, if I might.
yeah.
Terry has records to reflect that she does not have any changes from what you received to what she has.
This is the certified copy.
I know,
This is what was given out at the May 29th meeting on the tables.
Dennis, what I would suggest is that maybe tomorrow you could come in and we could sit down.
You can.
I know, I can. And we could sit down and show me what you got, and we can verify what we sent out and see if there's any differences.
Okay.
Based
I am not saying that what you sent out with the certified copies differs from what you think you sent out as the certified copies. That's not my point. My point is that the certified copies differ from the May 29th meeting copies that were provided to the public on the table.
Janice.
Yeah.
First of all, when it comes to any ordinance being placed out, I do that as a courtesy. Ordinances upon introduction are introduced by title only. The clerk or the town is required by law to have those ordinances out for the public hearing and made available prior to the public hearing, but not upon introduction. I can go back in my records and see specifically what was placed out at the meeting on May 29th, which may have, I'm not quite sure, and I don't think so, but don't hold me to that, okay, Janice? It may have differed a little bit, I don't know for sure, but in my recollection, that's the same ordinance that I did advertise and was in the mailing.
All right, and I'm not disputing that what you sent out as certified is what I received. The mailman didn't change it, okay? The other thing is then we don't have the courtesy of these updated copies being out at tonight's meeting, which would be an appropriate courtesy to the public, so that people can read them who are not within the 200 feet.
Mike, would you just explain?
You know, Janice, this evening, these ordinances aren't up for adoption. These ordinances are up for adoption on the 25th. You do
Right.
realize that?
Oh, yeah, I definitely realize that, but the 25th is like too late.
Janice, wait a minute here. So, So for tonight, all that the borough clerk did as a transparent and educational format, right, is to just notify, all that the borough clerk did on the agenda this evening to make sure that everyone was aware by reminding them that these ordinances that you're referring to, National Lead, Fair Share, Housing, are up for the 25th. They're not up for this evening. So tonight, that's why they're not out on the table, because they're not up for discussion this evening. They're up for discussion and adoption on June 25th, 2018. So tonight, you know, we hear your complaints and we hear your basis for reservations for this National Lead, but they're not up until the 25th.
I understand what you were saying, but if we wait till the 25th to discuss our objections to it, it's really too late.
Well,
And will these be out for the public to see at Wednesday's planning board meeting?
They should be out. The planning board secretary should make them available so that when you have Mr. Serenian there and Mr. Garul there, they will be, you know, out on the agenda. I haven't seen the agenda, but you can certainly get those documents then. And as I said, Mrs. Gruhl will be there, or a representative should be there, and Mr. Serenian is also represented that he will be there, or Mr. Edwards will be there.
All right, and is there a final settlement agreement right now? Because Mr. Edwards had said it would be available on the 30th of May. We waited to start asking for it until just this past Monday after that, which would have been the, let's see, the 4th.
I can certainly contact Mr. Edwards tomorrow to see if in fact there's been a fully executed settlement. I don't know that yet.
All right, well, he said there had been some changes on the 29th around 5:30, and...
You know, again, tomorrow I can ask Mr. Edwards.
All right, and is that something that will be at the planning board meeting also?
You can certainly ask Mr. Serenian and Mr. Edwards the status of it.
All right, because as the resolutions lie, they refer to hereto attached, meaning the settlement and what have you. So that we're not only talking about ordinances here, we're also talking about the settlement agreement with National Lead here also.
You'll have the agreement. I mean, that's what she's referring to, is the agreement. That's the...
Agreement, the settlement agreement.
Right.
All right, because some provisions of the settlement agreement...
There's three agreements, Janice, right?
Right, and in reality, we're talking about all of them. We're talking about the fair share, we're talking about the National Lead, and we're talking about the K-Land. That they all involve the residents of this town that should be able to read the provisions of them. Because, for instance, in the National Lead, there are provisions that the rezoning and the density goes with the land. Maybe it should be that it doesn't go with the land. Maybe if that contractor, developer backs out of the contract and doesn't develop it, maybe the town should get first right of refusal to purchase the land for open space instead of the right going with the land for National Lead to find another developer. I mean, certain terms of this could be possibly negotiated better. Why do we give away the acre 30 days after the settlement agreement is approved by the judge, but we don't get the right of way with Cross Avenue until they get a certificate of occupancy, which could be years down the road depending on how things go with development and financing and things of that sort.
Janice, as I said, all these questions you can certainly address at the planning board, and any questions associated with the development of these specific properties, because they are good questions.
All right, well, the other thing is then, I'm just going to say, from the residents' point of view, that, people who had part in this travesty should really look at their consciences and see what is really happening with gross negligence, with incompetency, with malpractice, with greed, with everything being for a for-profit type of situation, and who is benefiting from this and who we owe our allegiance to. If we have professionals, whether they're hired, elected, or volunteered or appointed, all right, in all good conscience, they should be doing the best job possible for the residents of this town. And that was not done. In this case, we're losing 22 acres of woodland and wildlife. And there's no provision in here for the trees. There's a reforestation ordinance. And we're going to be requesting a copy of that. Where do they get an exemption now for the trees they're going to take down? But if a resident takes down a tree, are they expected to pay a fee or replace the tree? How much should this developer be paying for reforestation to replace the trees that they're going to take down? The other thing is the 7 units. Would we not be better served by the calculation of the redevelopment fee? In this case, where does the town profit more towards affordable housing? I have nothing against affordable housing. People have to live just like the animals have to live. People need to have decent housing, good schools, live in a good community. And if we go back to the 30 to 40 units, the 7 affordable matches it, or else go for broke with the 164 and the 23 or 24 affordable. People have to live. I'm not opposed to affordable housing, but 7 units is, and that attorney Michael Edwards made it sound like it was hard to get the 7 units. So would it have been more profitable for the town to say, pay the development fee, don't build the 7 units? If they're building approximately 125 market rate units, okay, the way the development fee ordinance works and what have you, my calculation is that that development fee could wind up being millions. So I don't know as CFO, if you would be the person to calculate what the development fee would be on this if they didn't build the 7 affordable housing and check my calculations.
Janice, may I just say one thing, and I know you're having a lot of questions. I just want you to know that when our attorneys, and I was in court most of the time, and just so you understand, National Lead was, as you know, the term an intervener.
Yes.
And as an intervener, they have rights. And as
I
rights from the
understand.
court that they had rights that they use their muscle in the court for those rights. So you're saying we don't want it developed. I think everybody up here feels the same way.
Yep.
The problem is the court, whether we did it now or whether we did it on the settlement agreement, on a compliance hearing of June 28th, the judge would have said, you are going to do it, and he would have made us do it. So we tried to make the best possible outcome for the town as possible. That doesn't appease you, right? You know, I understand that, but the judge has told us numerous times to the lawyers back in his chambers and things like that, you are going to make them part of this settlement. They are an intervener. Art, you said, so I know you're saying make a better deal, but the judge was telling us as the borough, that's what you have to. They are an intervener. By rule, by court, by law, our hands were tied. So, of course, if this developer doesn't come in and develop the piece for any reason, of course we're going to be there to open space and try to buy.
That's not how the agreement reads.
No,
It says the
May I
rights
finish?
and the rezoning.
May I finish for a minute? May I finish?
Okay, goes
Thank
with
you.
the land.
Okay, may I finish for 1 second, okay? I'm telling you, and as I go through all this, what you're saying to us, and I know it's emotional, I'm going to just make a suggestion. The hearing's June 28th. I'm not asking you to take off from work, but it's very, very important. We'll have our professionals there, but the judge, I just want you to understand, the judge is going to tell us, you, any resident, okay, you must comply with this. And I just want you to understand, we must comply. And that's what they're really saying to us. So when they said that to us, we need to make the best situation possible. It's not a good tasting deal. I get it. But that's the best we can do. So even if you say, why do we need the 7 units? Why do we need the 7 units? We're going to have 7 units.
Well, maybe it's more beneficial, because it sounded like they didn't want to build the 7 units to take the money for the development fee. That's where I'm saying the comparison calculations should be done.
Every stone, Janice,
We still have to build the 7 units.
every single stone and every opportunity, every option with this negotiations was brought to National Lead. And I think, Pat, you kind of said it best before.
We had no leverage in this.
We had no leverage.
The court ruled, all we could do was try to get it down, whatever we could, but we had no leverage.
Well, then we should have leverage in some other areas, like making them put a traffic light at the end of Cross Avenue, and not taking down all of the natural trees and
Yeah,
things of that sort.
The planning board can make those types of recommendations. The planning board can do that. In a redevelopment zone, those are the types of things, when things are put into a redevelopment zone, those are the types of things that Sarah negotiates. That's not the situation that we had here. You have to remember, they held all the cards. They were
Unfortunately,
holding-
that was due to our mistakes with our professionals, with our appointed people. And then I understand that we had to live with that and do the best we could. I guess I'm just looking to see if we can do in any way any better. Because you don't even know if these units are for sale or for rent. I mean, you're approving ordinances and you don't have enough detail.
Well, we do know those things. That was some of the things and the details. And you can hear that at the planning board meeting on Wednesday. And
You do know what they are now?
well, that was one of the things that we required, was Susan Gruhl required concept plans and turned around, and, because we actually pushed for that. We pushed to get, it was a combination of both, from what I understand. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't remember, but these were the things that our new planner she made sure that we were going to move through with the information, with the concept plans, with as much detailed information. They weren't messing around.
When I asked her that question on May 29th, she said she did not know. So has something developed since
She
then?
might not have known at that moment. I'm not going to speak for Susan. That wouldn't be fair of me. But I do think that a lot of your answers will definitely get much more clarification on Wednesday. But, I mean, we as a council here have made it our absolute, every single waking moment, all of us have come together to try and do the best that we can in a situation that was a disaster. I would have loved nothing more. That's why we called for multiple appraisals. I know Jeff and his team were negotiating back and forth, trying to squeeze as much as they possibly could, when, like Pat said, we had no leverage here. They held everything. They had the rights. They could turn around and say, you know what? Go scratch, Saraville. We know that we have the right to build 160 plus units. We can turn around and put everything in the way that whatever you want to call it, agreement was drafted. And guess what? You're going to pay our attorney's fees. And the judge had already said that he was going to grant them the $170-something thousand in attorney's fees that we would have to pay out, and we would have had what you saw originally, which was the 160 plus units, which would have been the increased densities, which would have been these ridiculous number of bedrooms, all of that. That was what we were negotiating against. That was what we were negotiating
Janice,
against.
I do need to let other people come up and
All right,
speak.
I'm just going to end with one thought. If we can't change what's going on with the National Lead property, then we can change the development of this town going forward on things like 207 units on the Mako property. Warehouses would be less costly in a lot of ways, and we can move forward making better decisions with better appointees, better professionals hired, better volunteers, and everybody in all good conscience should think about their part in this and go forward and really do the best they can for this town and for its residents going forward.
Thank you.
you.
Come on up.
All this, it's awful hot. My name's John Piskorski, Hilltop Avenue, Saraville. Just have a question. I'd like to know what's going on with Optimum TV. They're getting out of hand. The prices that we pay the people in Saraville for the TV is outrageous. And something ought to be done about it.
Go ahead, Dan.
I know you weren't here the past couple of meetings. We did have a representative from Optimum come in and answer some of our questions. We are in the midst of negotiating a franchise agreement with them at the moment. Not only you, but other residents are very upset with the service. We've told them that. We've explained that to them. Right now, your only other choice of a cable company would be a satellite cable company, which would either be a Dish or a DirecTV. Fios, we've tried to contact Fios. We've gotten no response. We understand that they have come into a few more homes into Saraville, but they would have to have a complete fiber in the whole town in order to go for Fios. We just don't think that's realistic or going to happen. Somebody suggests, well, then just kick Optimum out and have some other cable company come in and use their, underground. It doesn't happen that way in their business. So we have really stopped negotiating with them for the moment because they haven't really improved anything. They haven't given us a plan of how they can improve our service. Some residents have asked, what are we getting for our money? Some residents have said, why don't you check with other municipalities and towns, which I have done. At this moment in negotiations, we are getting even much more than these other towns are getting. but that doesn't help you as the service is concerned. So
They're
we
getting
are,
much more, but they're giving us a high price. I'm paying an awful lot of money, and all I do is I put it on, and I get repeat programs over and over again. What the hell am I paying that money for and getting repeat programs?
your dissatisfaction is, a lot of people are not very happy with them, but unfortunately, we don't have another choice except for satellite, which would be DirecTV or Dish, whichever one you could go to. We cannot get another cable company to come in and take over. It's basically a monopoly, and unless Fios comes in, as I said before, which I'm just not giving you any hope. I don't believe they're going to maintain any more than whatever small percentage they have right now in the borough. We can write letters. We can have their representatives come here. I'm speaking to their corporate attorney along with our attorney in Long Island City right now, trying to get to anybody who will listen. It's a big company at this juncture, which is now Altice, if you've heard of that company or the name before. And Altice is a European or French company. It's difficult. So it's difficult to register our complaints. I've taken them all down by all the residents. We've tried. We've gotten other services for other parts of our municipality, for the municipality, which doesn't help you as an individual resident. I understand that, but that's all they're willing to talk to us about. I say upgrade the service. I say lower the price. I say give a break to a senior.
That's right.
And there's certain municipalities who have tried. I've looked at other agreements from other municipalities. I got to tell you, right now, we're better than other municipalities. That doesn't help you, though, but we're better overall with what we're getting, but that still doesn't help you. So I know you want a positive answer for me to give you a positive answer. I can only tell you where we are at this juncture.
Well, I think you ought to be on our back. Another thing I got is what's been being done on Hilltop about the speeding. We got cars speeding down there left and right, going through the stop streets, not stopping. I haven't seen a cop car out there in a couple of weeks. And it becomes he's there for 15 minutes and disappears.
We notified the chief. Letting the chief, he rotates as far as policemen coming out there. We'll ask him again to put more on staff and see what they could do.
Well, I don't know what he's telling you about. He's seen sending police cars out there. I haven't seen any there in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Now we got kids after school. It's almost over, but they're walking on the street because we don't have fully sidewalks in the neighborhood. Okay. And it's getting to be ridiculous. When I got to wait 5 minutes to back out of my driveway. And another thing I got, what's going on by the Main Street extension? What's the progress going there?
The paving, you mean? The paving of the roads?
Is there progress in the road being done?
Sure, you could see it right now.
No, I'm not talking
One whole
about
side is done.
the bypass.
Oh, that's different. Bypass, that's different.
Jake and...
Still waiting on the Army Corps of Engineers. They've got to issue a permit before the borough can do anything. We're still waiting on the Army Corps.
Well, I asked that question a year ago, and you gave me the same answer. What's taking so long?
The Army Corps keeps asking.
Well, why don't you get on their back?
We attempt to provide everything that they're asking for. That's all that we can do.
Well, that ain't the right answer I'm looking for. You took the position, do your job, and get them to do theirs. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken?
Thank you, Mayor. Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. What is the status of the MCUA meeting that is supposed to take place?
It is scheduled for Tuesday night, June 26th at 6 p.m. in council chambers.
Tuesday night, June 26th at the council chambers. I brought that up because people are talking about accountability. the gentleman who just talked about the cable company, and I heard your replies, Mr. Frankel, and I'm glad you're working on this, but I think this is a little bit like what I came to this microphone and talked about getting the MCOA in here. Maybe we need some other people here on behalf of our cable company problems. The cable company is regulated by the Board of Public Utilities, Office of Cable TV, which is a function of the Board of Public Utilities. And I sit here and keep hearing people lay blame. Some of them for the right reasons, some of them for the wrong reasons. The same thing when it comes to judges. Let's take judges first. People complain about judges. And I'm not here to be hold up any judges. I have no judges in my family. I know a few on a casual basis. But you know how a judge gets appointed in state of New Jersey? I'm not talking about the local judge that you appoint here at Mayor and Council. You know how they get appointed? Do you know how they wind up there? Is quite frankly, they're not so much appointed as they're nominated. In New Jersey, they're nominated by the governor. So we can probably can't blame this governor too much, just got here. We can blame the last governor or the guy before him, et cetera. But you know how they really get there? Not by the governor. They get there by the confirmation of the vote of the Senate. So the people who are responsible are the people that we all elect, our senators, our 40 senators in the state of New Jersey. So if we got problems with the judges, you know, the judges are administering the law of the state of New Jersey made by the legislature, these same 40 people, in addition to the 80 assembly people. That's what the judges are doing, as much as we can get frustrated at them. And it's the same thing when it comes to the cable television. They're regulated by the Board of Public Utilities, who are, those people, they don't just come down somewhere and say, hey, I'm here, I'm going to be on the Board of Public Utilities. They're nominated by the governor. And then they're voted on by our senators for every of the 40 districts in the state of New Jersey. So maybe when we talk about cable TV, maybe we need to get our senator here. Or maybe at least somebody from his office. I've had these problems, and I didn't come up here and talk a lot about them, but I've had problems with cable TV for years, just like Mr. Gavrin and the various other people that have been here talking about it. I have the same problems, but I didn't want to come up and just duplicate what they were saying. They were very valid issues. And to have somebody walk over us and just arbitrarily raise rates and lie, etc., and sit back and take it, that's not a very good policy, and it's not a very good excuse. So I think when somebody comes here, and I'm going to talk about this in a minute with frustrations, I think you want to sit back and you want to think not only about what you can do, but who you can get in here. Who is accountable? Everybody is accountable. The only place where there's no accountability probably is in China, North Korea, and some puppet dictatorships. So I think rather than just wringing our hands and saying, oh, there's nothing we can do, there is something we can do. We just got to think about it and do the right thing. You heard Janice speak very eloquently tonight about hers and the frustration of the people of Melrose. And they have every right to have those frustrations. We talk about our hands were tied because there were interveners. Well, we have a planning board, the mayor's planning board, who let these developers come in year and year out and build with no affordable housing. And then the same developers who built with no affordable housing have the audacity to go to court against us and say, we don't have enough affordable housing in the borough. I mean, talk about somebody coming in and stomping on us and then spitting on us. As I said at the last meeting, for maybe some of the people that weren't here, yeah, the frustration is very valid. I have the same frustrations because we've let developers come in many cases here, and they have taken Sayreville better and faster than Grant took Richmond. And that's the reason for the frustration. Yeah, there are people, some people sit here who have done a lot of work. I think our attorney, Serenian, or whoever he is, has probably done the best he can with the cards that have been dealt to him. I think we've given him chicken feathers and asked him to make chicken soup out of it. And obviously, this soup is not going to be too tasty to many of our residents of town, and me included. You know, I don't live in Melrose. My relatives lived there in the past, but I am just as concerned about the people in Melrose as those that live on North Edward Street or Sayreville proper or any place else. Because my philosophy is this. A Lutheran minister in the time of the Nazi problems in Germany wrote a very famous poem. And he wrote it not for the Nazis, he wrote it for the elitist Germans. And it says something like, when they came for the socialists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a socialist. When they came for the trade unionists, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a trade unionist. When they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for me, there was nobody left to speak up. That's why I want to come up and speak up for people like those in Melrose, for the people on Journey Mill Road when they tried to put the 2,500 trailers over there. That would have gone through too. If people like Eddie Streck and Barbara Kilcummins and Jim Robinson and myself didn't come here and speak up against it. I think one of the lessons is we need a little more support sometimes, a little more people speaking up. We need to do some things that will help get people to planning board, board of adjustment meetings, council meetings, because they're not informed. The death of newspapers has really hurt democracy and local government. And it can enable people to sit here and just do what they want without a lot of checks and balances. So it is frustrating. It's totally frustrating what has happened here with these developers, but there are people to blame, and the people are right here. I've talked about many times who they are. In this particular case, the planning board didn't do the job, and we know that, and people came, we came to this microphone. Jim Robinson, I remember when he came and talked about Susan Gruhl. And, you know, there was complaints about, oh, we're going to spend more money, we're going to do this. Thank God for Susan Gruhl. Thank God Councilwoman Kilpatrick and whoever else found Serenian, because they are consummate professionals that did a job. They got here too late. They're going to charge us, of course, a ton of money, which they're entitled to for what they're doing. But we're in a bind. We're in a terrible bind. Let me say one other thing before I sit down. The River Road that we were talking about here, the development there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the plan for Sarah and other development there is for affordable housing. Is that right? So let's not confuse affordable housing with low-income housing. It's easy to confuse that. Low-income housing generally, and I think that's a little, perhaps, I'm not quite sure if you were totally on the right track with some of your comments, Mayor, early. I think that we all know of Section 8 housing, and how did that come about? We remember, and I'm not singling them out, but the projects in New Brunswick, for instance, that were built in the 1950s, or which are all destroyed now and knocked down. I think the government, when we built projects like this throughout the country, they decided that it wasn't right to put all low-income people together. It wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to anybody. So that's when they developed the Section 8 housing program, which would integrate people throughout the whole community. That was part of trying to assuage the fears of residents of low-income housing and other people. The housing we're talking about building on River Road, et cetera, that's affordable housing. That's a much different issue. That is housing that is based on income, like low-income housing, but it's generally people with a much better income stream, and I don't think it's the same problem of having to integrate those people totally in the community. Yes?
This type of affordable housing is broken up into tiers. So you're not talking about those types of situations like you're saying. These are people that are going to fall into low, medium, and I actually think I'm messing up the tiers, but Jeff actually explained them better. So you have variations of affordable housing determined based on income, and those breakdowns are set by law. So developers, whenever we're putting affordable housing into any units, into any development, has to fit a certain criteria of percentages in order to avoid the types of housing that you know, stigma of that Section 8 and doing what the mayor was saying, where we're going to concentrate a certain group of individuals, and that's not the way it's done, because under those fair share housing and under the Mount Laurel decisions, that's what they were looking to avoid. They wanted to provide quality housing for individuals. Quite frankly, teachers in this town, starting at the beginning of the guide, would qualify for these types of homes. Teachers living right here, people fresh out of college. I don't want anybody here to think that affordable housing is those things that you've heard of in the past, like Ken was saying. This is something that is important. This is something for our young people, something for our young families, something for our single mothers or single parents out there. It's a need, and it's something that we can provide right now at an appropriate manner.
Thank you for those comments, and that's I'm well aware of that, and the reason I've been aware of it for a couple of reasons, but number one, very recently, when we passed a resolution for Gillette Manor, the nonprofit board that runs Gillette Manor, when we had to, at the insistence of the court, we had to provide a minimum of 30-year affordable housing out, and perhaps, and that changes based on the lease. So if somebody is signed in and goes in for 15 years, it's then 30 years. So it could be 40 or 45 years for each unit at Gillette Manor of affordable housing. And we wanted a very close definition of affordable housing to see that we weren't doing something down the road that could hurt us and hurt the viability of that project as well as others. So that's exactly where it's at. It's not low-income housing. So we should understand the difference, and the public should be aware of that too. Thank you very much.
Charlie?
Charlie Lukey, Melrose Section of Cerebral. I got two questions. The meeting with the Sewerage Authority, what time is that going to be? 6 p.m. Okay. My second question, with the housing that you're talking about on Cross Avenue, I asked this question once before. How are you going to get the effluent out of there?
The
sewage.
contaminants.
Hmm?
The sewage.
You gonna give everybody a bucket on the way to work, take it with you? You don't have, the sewage up there is terrible. There's no sewers on that side of the road. Where you gonna go with it? How you gonna get that stuff out of there? If you think you're gonna put it on the street in Melrose, on Oak Street, guess what? You better talk to somebody about the people on the other side of Energeski Drive.
Charlie?
Because they're gonna have to put in backflow valves on every house down there.
So this will be part of the application that they put forth
Yeah.
to the planning board. They're gonna have to build out sewers.
Mhm.
So I don't know the answer to that, but the developer's gonna have to figure it out, just like every other housing construction in town.
Are the taxpayers gonna be,
No.
you gonna pay that bill?
No.
No, that's a
No?
developer's responsibility.
Developer's problem.
No different than any other.
I
housing
mean,
development.
to run that sewer line, I think you're gonna have to put another pipe down Oak Street to get all the way down, because you don't have the capacity there.
That's why they don't give away the houses for free. They gotta make some money off them.
I can't hear you straight.
So that's why they don't give the houses away. They gotta get some money for all the infrastructure they gotta put in.
Well, I tell you, it's gonna be a tough one, but, I can see you people buying a lot of that anti-backflow valves and putting them in.
Well, that would
Thank-
be, Jay,
thank
that
you
would
for
come
your-
before you, right, through that application process at the planning?
That's part of the planning board application, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Charlie. Are there any other questions? Being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move the public portion be closed.
Second.
Roll call?
Councilpersons Novak?
Yes.
Buchanan? Grillo?
Yes.
Kilpatrick?
Yes.
Lembo?
Yes.
Melendez?
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute adjournment before we reopen for the
motion to
workshop.
adjourn.
A motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Cable. They have to put You're right.
That's council.
What happens? You just don't give it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, why don't we charge them? I'm just going to give you an example. They have been calling me, bugging me to pay extra. This new box, the plan. And I said, I don't want it because you've already told me that I'm never going to have to. Because the wires are broken under the ground. And you've been promising me for 20 years, you're going to come in and dig it up. So I don't want to spend money on this. They sent it to me. Told me I have to hook it up again, turning off my own. That's crazy.
I'm gonna bring in DirecTV. Honestly, I don't know if people are scared about DirecTV. It's a very viable.
Yeah, well, it can't, and I'm telling you, FiOS, everybody that's got FiOS has got the same problem that they have with cable. I'm just saying, the biggest problem that people are talking about is the bill.
In the program.
They think that the cost they're paying for a lot of stations, they don't watch or whatever. Yeah.
You might have to pay 35 cents for Channel 4 or 55 cents for Channel 4.
I don't even have HBO.
I don't get it. Now when I watch movies,
I don't even watch it.
I should have paid $12 a month for something I'm not going to use.
You know what, I was a little concerned, unless I missed something. We still have, there's still really no, they're gonna give us the right of way to Fourth Avenue. I don't think it's the right of way to Fourth Avenue unless it's a completed street. That's right, and I won't take it.
That's from the planning board.
Yeah, but that's not what they put in this thing. It just says they agree to give us the right of way. So, well, I don't want the unless I know what the right of way is. I don't want it. Pull the chair up. Let them keep the goddamn road and maintain it. Yeah, if they don't build a street, I don't want it. But in that agreement, it says we're taking it. I don't want it. You know what? And I brought that up at the last time. I was not happy with that. We already know that there's problems because Costa Verde's parking lot goes halfway into the street.
I know.
So why do we're just inheriting a lot of problems. I don't want it. Right, Jay? I do not want Cross Avenue unless it's a completed street. Yeah, I do not want that street unless it's I don't want to go in there and then we'll be told, oh, well, you have to widen it, you have to do this, and you've got to buy easements from other people like Costa Verde who swears that they're parking lot. Yeah. So, I mean, the way I read that agreement, and even after I complained, it really didn't change. It just says they're going to give us the right-of-way. Well, keep the goddamn right-of-way and let it be your problem. Yeah. But it's got to be straight, it's got to be wide enough, it's got to be up to state standards at the intersections and everything, you know? Not even necessarily that, but as long as the intersection is configured so that if we put the traffic light in, we don't have to start going around buying property. Can't you demand that for people to access that thing, that the street be completed properly? That's what I mean. I just said to Ricky, I said, I'm the last one to go. I didn't know. I am very unhappy with National Ag. It seemed to me National Ag. Oh, National Ag would sell it to us, but the other guy's refusing and saying he's going to sue us. Come on, it's not right. Thank you very much.
Well, there's a big difference in the ordinance we saw May of 2017 versus what the little change is, and then the judges, and now this one seems like it's really just to soup on Katie. It seems like he wrote but then he also
I knew that he was getting.
so that's what we're talking about. So he's going to get away. Which way do we make that better? They need to do a calculation. Development fees from him or 7 units. 7 units are surplus. They're surplus. But is it legal? Is it legal to give away or sell something that the residents voted not to? We voted in that election not They need to, it's gotta be worth more than what? It's gotta be worth more than. It is.
Everything I had a problem.
That they do every year, or the fourth graders when they.
This is the same though, right? This is the same.
So Eddie
Oh, there is a change?
around, and Art usually does them all.
Okay, okay.
No matter how many times they come here with me, they think it's the.
Oh, I wished I put an Excedrin in my pocket.
Oh, yeah, it's the finish. Why? All right.
Ready? Okay, I'm going to call the agenda portion to order. Would everyone please stand for a salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Terry, statement of publication.
Yes, Mayor, take notice that this agenda session of the Mayor and Borough Council being held on this 11th day of June 2018 has been advertised and posted in accordance with Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975.
Roll call.
Councilpersons Buchanan. Here. Grillo.
Here.
Kilpatrick.
Present.
Lembo.
Here.
Melendez. Here. Novak.
Here.
Okay, as I call out the ordinances, if you have a question or comment, please speak up. 413, 414, 416, 417, 418, 419, 420. Committee reports, Administration and Finance, Councilwoman Novak.
Thank you, Mayor. The board, motion to receive and file the Board of Education minutes from May 1st.
Second.
Next item.
Receive and file New Jersey Transit Corporation 2018 request for federal assistance. Receive and file.
Is there a second?
Second.
Next item.
Okay, I'd like to approve the application for the beauty shop received from, I'm not even going to touch that name, for 520 Ernstine Road for a beauty salon with 6
Any
chairs.
objections?
No.
Anything else, Councilwoman?
Mayor, just what I mentioned before, I want to thank Denise and Dan and Bernie for really going above and beyond today and getting those resolutions prepared. And hopefully we'll have a very productive summer. Thank you.
Okay, Planning and Zoning, Councilman Lembo.
Thank you, Mayor. Move the following minutes be received and filed. The Planning Board minutes of April 8th, 2018.
Is there a second?
Second.
Next item.
Also to receive and file, notice of a public hearing received from the Borough of South River on an amendment to their zoning ordinance. Public hearing will be on July 16th. Receive
Second.
and file.
Anything else, Councilman?
Other than that, progress, Mayor.
Thank you. Public Safety, Councilman Buchanan.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the
Second.
Anything else, Councilman?
I didn't receive any recent email, but I've been trying to get an answer from the state as to the status of the permits. I've left a number of messages, but I have not received any response as to what the status is.
Anything else we can do on our end, Jay?
I'm not sure what the recent email, maybe it was just from a resident asking the status, is that, okay. I can go through and provide some information maybe to the administrator, and maybe we can go through and have some more people contact the state to try to push along a status.
Okay, anything else, Councilman? Thank you. Recreation, Councilman Melendez.
Item A, no minutes of departmental reports this week.
Okay, what about B?
Item B, special event application received from James Iola and Casey Jukas to hold their marriage ceremony at Lockwood Boatworks on Route 35, September 29th, 2018.
Any objections?
Nope.
Sounds good.
Anything else, Councilman?
I just want to thank the Rec Advisory Board for running the fishing derby this past Saturday. It was a big success. We had a huge turnout, a lot of children. Thank you, Sayreville Sportsmen, for sponsoring the event. Speaking of summer, we have a bunch of programs available to register at sayreville.rec.com with the rec board. Soccer, volleyball, basketball, field hockey, games of the street, flag football, softball, and there's a gymnastics camp and a cheerleading camp as well. June 23rd is movie night, 9 o'clock at the park, Kennedy Park, showing Spider-Man, the new one. Admission is free, and bring beach chairs or blankets. This year's Independence Day, again, is June 30th at 4 o'clock, 4 to 8. And the music entertainment is from 7 to 9:30, and the fireworks are 9:30, and the rain date will be July 1st.
Anything else, Councilman?
Nope, progress.
Thank you. Water, Sewer, Environmental, Councilman Grillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I move the following minutes be received and filed. The Water and Sewer Director's report for the month of April 2018.
Second.
Is there a second? Anything else, Councilman?
Yeah, just a calendar reminder, Saturday, June 16th, which is this Saturday, 10:30 a.m. at St. Stan's is the annual Flag Day ceremony. So if anybody is going to go out to that, it's a really nicely done event. So that's 10:30 on Saturday at St. Stan's. Then just two questions for Dan. One, just a reminder, you had said that at the June 25th meeting, you'd have an update on the efficiency audit. So just a reminder. And then, have you heard anything from Higher Gruel about their fiscal impact assessment? It was originally given to us on May 11th. It was a cost breakdown and a scope of work that the council had asked for. Have they returned that yet?
I've asked for the scope of work. Susan is on vacation till, by the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. And that's all, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Works, Council President Kilpatrick.
Thank you,
Vicky,
Mayor.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
just,
go ahead.
may I, Human Relations Commission had the fun run this Saturday.
Yes.
So it was a big turnout, and I didn't see any of you guys there, so I ran the 5K on behalf of the whole council and mayor.
Okay, Council President.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no minute or departmental reports for today, but I do have a request received from Charles Spano and residents of Oxford Drive to conduct a block party on Oxford Drive on August 18th with a rain date of August 19th from 10 a.m. to 12 midnight. Is everything, that's for approval or denial?
All resident signatures are in, so it's up to the
Yeah.
governing body.
Yes.
Are there any objections?
No.
Anything else, Council President?
You know what, yes, there is one thing I would like to mention. I had the opportunity just this past week to attend at the Samsel Upper Elementary School, the LEAD graduation for 5th grade. And for those that don't know, this is our law enforcement against drugs. And Chief Zabrowski was there. Officer Morales is also, she's the individual that usually is in charge and kind of runs that, in addition to, oh no, and I'm going to get in trouble because I'm forgetting the other officer by name. But, oh, it's going to drive me crazy now. And he's in my building quite often too. But it will come to me. The reason why I bring it up is because, first of all, this 5th grade class, there is almost, we're talking over 490 students in this 5th grade class. And what I was able to watch, not just my own daughter there, the way that those students conducted themselves, the essays that were read, that there were almost 500 that Chief Zembrowski and the teachers had to go through in order to select just 3 winners. What these young people get out of this program is just an absolute testament to our police officers. The kids are so excited. They all get shirts. The time every week that they get to spend with our officers talking about making right choices, how to say no to drugs, but so much more. It really impressed me. It brought a little tear to my eye, not just again because Haley was there, but because it really just shows how much our officers do care about this town and this community. They did an impressive job. It was a short ceremony, but so powerful. And I wanted to just say thank you to all the officers that are involved in that. And yes, Mary, you want to talk about Coffee with a Cop too? No, I'll let you handle that one because I spoke enough.
Chief started a program with Coffee with a Cop, and the police officers, I understand it's going to happen once a month.
Yeah.
They specify a particular business or an area where you go and you have coffee with a police officer, and it was very well attended, and everybody had a great time.
I liked your suggestion I saw in the email chain that maybe next time that if we do it at a different time period, I forget what the hours were that they ran it, so that way I think you get even more kids.
Yeah.
And it was really just a great program, and it just shows you, our officers out there meeting the kids. It really starts at that
That's
young
right.
age.
You start with them then, and you don't have problems later.
So thank you. So for both of those efforts, really impressive. Other than that, Mayor, progress. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, you don't need to file an Oprah request for an ordinance. They're all online. If you go to Saraville.com, on the left-hand side, there'll be a tab for ordinances.
Yeah, until after we approve them.
Are you looking for an existing ordinance or one that we're discussing up here?
In both, we're looking for different ones in both cases. For instance, the ones we're discussing now that are for the public hearing on June 25th. But
Come on, come to the mic if you would, Janice.
we're looking for one, for both cases. For instance, we're looking for the ones that are going to be discussed at the public hearing on June 25th.
They may
but
not-
we're also
Just so you know, a lot of times they're not ready till the Friday before the meeting.
All right,
They're not in their final version.
All right, then we're also looking for some existing ones.
Existing ones you'll find online at Saraville.com.
All right, because like we're looking for the development fee one, because different ones were passed. I don't know which one is final. To do a calculation, that would be online?
Yes.
Or how about the tree
ordinance.
bank ordinance, the
That's online.
reforestation ordinance?
It's online.
Do you need to know the number to be able to find it?
No,
Because
it
I
has
don't
It has
know.
a tab.
It
If
has
you
a
have any
tab?
problem, call Terry's office. They'll help you through it.
Terry, is it there? I mean, we're jumping all over this. Oh, it is there? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So there's
It's pretty methodical, Janice.
ordinances, and then you can search through it. All right, and that would have the final development fee ordinance one?
Yes.
Okay, because sometimes they're revised, and if they, were
Can I just
passed
mention
3 or
before we
4
keep
times.
saying they're on there, okay? Once the ordinance gets adopted, it's given to one of my staff members, and once it goes through all the signature process and everything else that we have to do and advertise and affidavits of publication, and then we distribute them, and then we combine, say, a series of 10 ordinances, then we send it over to our codifier. Our codifier then puts them online. So it may be a little waylaid before it gets posted online, but it will,
it's a
in a timely, short, timely fashion, they will be posted online.
All right, and Terry, when you say a short, timely fashion, how long do you think we're talking?
Be a month.
All right, so then, I'm not sure if the development fee ordinance was finally
Whatever you
passed in
need, Janice,
January, or?
We'll get it for you.
Okay, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that.
You're welcome. And with that, I'll go to the administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Authorizing the execution of an agreement with the County of Middlesex for the acceptance of the 2018-19 Fiscal Municipal Alliance Grant in the amount of $342,655.
Next item.
Appointing Enza Sepsin, how do you pronounce it? Enza.
Septinos.
Septinos as keyboarding clerk, 1 permanent full-time in the municipal clerk's office. Also, just to add to the Administration of Finance, I handed out to everybody, I think got it before, but we should be very happy with our water department. They spent a lot of time on redesigning the bill. Your bill will no longer be as a postcard. Your bill will be in an envelope. It'll have a lot of information that is on there. It's going to be a full page. It'll be folded in trifold. And if anybody have any questions, you could contact myself or the water department. This goes to effect now. And I guess, Ricky, did you receive your first bill?
I did.
Okay, so,
Yeah, my son got his first bill
good,
today, too.
okay.
Next item.
Authorization for the Borough Clerk to advertise for the receipt of sealed bids for abandoned and unclaimed motor vehicles at various garages, no longer required for public use in accordance with NJSA 39-10A-1.
Next item.
Authorization to issue contract for a G5 dual band voice pagers to Tactical Public Safety of Berlin, New Jersey through New Jersey State Contract T0109AA3932 in the amount not to exceed $89,108.50.
Next item.
Request from Police Chief to call for a police captain, lieutenant, and sergeant's promotional list from the Department of Personnel.
Next item.
Authorization to reject bids received for a pole barn at the police firing range, and authorizations to re-advertise. Low bidder did not properly execute bid bond, and consent of surety. Second bid substantially exceeds the borough's appropriation for the project, and the see attached summary of bids.
Next item.
Authorization to issue a contract for the purchase of 95-gallon universal waste containers from Schaefer Systems International through the NJPA Co-op Contract 041217 SFR in the amount not to exceed $53,236.44.
Next item.
Authorization to issue a contract for the furnishing and installation of one Swenson salt spreader through the ESCNJ Co-op Contract 17/18-30 in the amount not to exceed $21,985.79.
Next item.
Authorization to issue a contract for the furnishing and delivery of one 2019 Peterbilt 27-yard rear loading refuse truck to Hunter, New Jersey, Peterbilt of Clarksburg, New Jersey, through the NJPA Contract 081616 PMC and 112014 NWY in an amount not to exceed $222,473.
Next item.
Authorization to issue a contract for the furnishing and delivering of one 2019 Peterbilt 348 cab and chassis from Hunter, Jersey, Peterbilt of Clarksburg, New Jersey, through New Jersey PA Contract 081716-PMC in an amount not to exceed $127,248.
Next item.
Wait a minute. I don't think we have the funds in place for that? For the
Denise?
windows?
Isn't it the one that the vehicles were put in, the vehicle, ordinance?
Ordinance system that we introduced? Was that part of the introduction of the ordinance today? I don't know that, but,
That would have been the one that was adopted back in,
oh, an older one?
yeah, back in May.
Could we check on that? Because I don't know why windows would be on the vehicle one. I don't think it was.
Go ahead and check it, Denise.
Thank you,
Next item,
Denise.
Dan.
Authorization to purchase two Ford's F-250 pickup trucks from Buyer Ford of Morristown, New Jersey, through New Jersey State Contract T2100/A88727 in an amount not to exceed $61,869.50.
Next item.
Authorization for U.S. architects to prepare plans and specifications for the Senior Center window replacement project at a fee not to exceed $10,000.
Next item.
Authorization to extend sewer pump station maintenance contract to municipal maintenance of Cinnaminson, New Jersey for a one final 1-year term. This contract shall also be amended to include the maintenance of pumps at Duhernal.
Next item.
Authorization to purchase one Bobcat 5610 from Garden State Bobcat of Greenbrook, New Jersey through the ESCNJ Co-op Contract number not for
amount
50
of-
at the amount of $58,337.45.
Next item.
Authorization to purchase Edmund Software through
SHI.
SHA. Is it SHA or SHI?
SHI.
SHI of Somerset, New Jersey, through New Jersey State Contract M003/T89851, an amount not to exceed $56,691.20.
Anything else,
That's
Dan?
it, Mayor.
Thank you. CFO's report, Denise.
Nothing, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Borough Engineers, Jay Cornell.
Thank you, Mayor. First item is the underground storage tank removal program. We provided you with an update on the status of that project. It started back in 1992. There were approximately 17 different sites that you removed tanks from. There are 2 that are still have ongoing remediation right behind the Borough Hall here, the old Public Works Garage and the old First Aid Squad. We have to do some additional groundwater testing and also soil testing for the state, so we're going to need another authorization to allow us to proceed with that work. So if you agree, we'll have a resolution at the next meeting. And next item is the Hercules Village Water and Sanitary Sewer Project. We're receiving bids tomorrow. As you recall, this has been in your capital budget. Once we receive the bids, we'll speak with your CFO and work out the funding. I believe you may have to adopt some bond ordinances to award a contract. So hopefully we'll have that in order, and we can have the bond ordinance introduced at your next meeting. And the last item listed on the agenda has already been discussed, so there's no further action with that.
Okay,
Thank you,
Borough
Mayor.
Attorney's report?
Yeah, Mayor, only that pursuant to your authorization, the consent order for Fulton Lending has been executed and the mediation is continuing.
Okay. Anything for executive?
No, sir.
Okay, on the public portion for questions and comments, any and all issues. I didn't have a time limit during the regular meeting. I will have a time limit for this. Phil?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Phil Emma, 16 Corey. I come before you tonight to ask you for your help on an important issue that our borough may be facing soon, recreational marijuana. As you know, one of our governor's campaign promises is that he was going to legalize marijuana in the state of New Jersey, and from what I've been reading, this may happen sooner than later. We are consistently reminded that we have an opioid problem in our state, so it doesn't make any sense to introduce marijuana, recreational marijuana, and all of its baggage. I don't believe this is something that Saraville wants or needs. So I ask you, where would these businesses go? Would they go next to a school, a playground, park, churches or temples, or recreational neighborhoods, residential neighborhoods? I've talked with my neighbors, and nobody wants a pot shop in Saraville. And then you have the matter of unforeseen consequences with people who may come from other areas, including out of state, into Saraville to purchase, use, consume marijuana in its various forms, and then possibly drive through our town. In addition to that, there are stories all over the internet of THC-laced treats, marijuana edibles, that have landed children and adults in the emergency room. And so if I haven't convinced you yet, let me point to Colorado as the great marijuana experiment. The Denver Post last year did a study, just a couple of their findings. Marijuana is figuring into more fatal crashes overall. In 2013, drivers tested positive for the drug in about 10% of all fatal crashes. By 2016, it was 20%. More drivers are testing positive for marijuana and nothing else. Of the drivers involved in fatal crashes in 2014 who tested positive for marijuana, more than 52% had no alcohol in their system, and by 2016, that had grown to 69%. I think we need to get ahead of this now before our borough is faced with an application for one or more of these types of businesses. Here are just a couple of New Jersey towns implementing bans: Seaside Heights, Berkeley, Wall Township, Point Pleasant Beach, West Long Branch, Lavalette, Cranberry, Spotswood. Old Bridge just passed a ban in April, and Mawa, which was the latest, they passed a ban last week. Some towns are also passing ordinances banning farms and manufacturing facilities in addition to dispensaries. So we are a borough of families, and we have a responsibility to protect the residents, including our children. We also have a responsibility to protecting our quality of life. So what I'm asking for is a ban on businesses selling, growing, distributing, cultivating, transporting, delivering, manufacturing, storing marijuana, including its ancillary and related paraphernalia in the borough of Saraville. I encourage you to seriously consider passing a resolution, changing our land development code, and making this a prohibited use. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Emma. About
I agree with him.
a month ago, If you remember in our packets, the Old Bridge,
Copy of the Old Bridge.
the Old Bridge, and I had asked everybody to take a really hard, close look at it, and I know that this past weekend, Mayor Fulop was also on the news talking about the ways in which he's looking at addressing those exact same concerns in Jersey City and moving forward with, and I think it is an issue that we need to really consider, think about, and talk about. Because while other towns are moving to make those changes through their zoning ordinances and so forth, we're starting to become a little bit of an island that doesn't have something. And as things move forward,
Yeah,
you don't
so
want
they'll
to
all come
be,
here.
they're all gonna migrate into one spot, and I really would not.
Could not agree more. I
Yeah.
think
Yep.
we need to seriously
Absolutely.
consider that ordinance for our next meeting. Absolutely.
Mike, can you check out the other towns and
Yeah, you
bring
know
us an
what?
ordinance?
I'll have an opportunity, I'll get a copy of the ordinance and sit down with Dan on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Ken?
Can I just say one thing? Would it be helpful also to send a resolution to the state telling them how much we're opposed to this and how it's going to hurt our children?
Couldn't hurt. I don't,
It can't hurt.
Yeah,
I mean, governor seems bent on it, but it can't hurt.
I know that the chief put out
Tax
something.
money isn't worth everything.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
The chief about maybe 2 months ago put out in the Suburban an article in reference to, you know, a whole bunch of studies, and from that perspective, I mean, it's glaring, so.
Yeah.
Ken?
Ken Olszewski, 108 North Edward Street. I neglected when I was up the last time to mention, I am pleasantly surprised tonight that the public address system is so much better than it's been at past meetings. I talked to Councilman Melendez about it, and I know it's not a permanent fix, but you can hear in the back of the room, which you have not been able to do. Mr. Serenian last week, you couldn't hear half of what he said. You know, when you told me you couldn't hear, he raised the microphone for 30 seconds, and I couldn't hear what the hell he said. Everybody tonight coming to this microphone, you've been able to hear. It is so much different, and it is so important that we get some kind of fix to this. It cannot be that big a deal. I know Councilman Melendez is working on it. He told me a while back about putting a gooseneck microphone or a clamp here with a microphone, which might be better because a lot of the people who have the most problems are the professionals. You go to the planning board and then the zoning board meeting, the guy raises his hand and says, I've been a planner for 25 years, well, he can't talk into the microphone. I can forgive some member of the public who's come here once or twice, but this is a real problem, and it is so much better tonight. So if this is a one-time thing, I don't know, but I wanted everybody, not only Councilman Melendez, to know about that. And it is really important that something gets done. Thank you.
So just to give you a quick, just looking at my notes here, we made some manual audio changes that's improving the audio quality. So I had a vendor come in, a couple of them, to do an assessment of what we need to do here. And what we found was there's some legacy equipment that's the audio processor that takes your audio from your microphone and digitizes it so we can send it to Cablevision. So that's why YouTube works better than the cable piece. And at the same time, we're going to do some changes, and there's going to be a new microphone that's going to be mounted, but it's better quality for when you move away from the microphone. So we're going to try that, and hopefully that kind of solves our problem. So
great, it
we'll
is so important. And by the way, I don't know this to be a fact, but through the grapevine, someone told me at the last meeting, before it was over, someone was speaking, and all of a sudden it cut out to a totally different meeting and cut off the comments that were made. I didn't see it on YouTube, but I understand it was on the
TV.
broadcast. I didn't get a chance to check that, but and people, I have mentioned this once before, people are saying, I mean, now you've got people saying, I think this is intentional. I'm sure it's not, but I mean, you're digging yourself a bigger and bigger hole. This thing has got to be fixed. Again, people tell me, I listen to Old Bridge, I listen to this town, I listen to that town. I don't seem to have those problems, so it has to be fixed. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you, Mayor. Jim Robinson, 11 Burrell Square. There are two matters that I'd like to ask about, both of the borough attorney.
the Fulton's Landing consent order. Mr. Dupont, what is there that you can tell us about that?
Nothing, that was just the continuation of the mediation with Judge Cordemus.
Okay. And the second matter, I know it's not on the agenda, but it's been in the news, and it has to do with an injunction that was sought by the Baykeeper, and I know the Edison Wetlands folks were involved. Is there anything you know about that?
No, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, all right. Something that is important and of concern, and
I don't know if the borough had ever received anything. We weren't served with anything.
Mayor,
You're
you
talking
commented
about-
on that. Did the borough receive it, or did you comment just based on
Based on a call from a reporter.
a call from a reporter? You haven't seen the suit or the
No, it's not against the borough,
filing?
not against the borough.
Okay.
According to that report
All
that I
right.
read, it was.
And, all right, thank you. And just so that I understand, because I couldn't hear everything, somebody was authorized and directed to act on the resolution that was passed that had to do with the COA settlement. Is that correct? Because
Yes, the mayor had announced that he was not going to execute any document associated with the COA litigation. So therefore, the mayor and council, or the council, authorized the council president or the borough administrator execute those documents.
Okay. Now, had you not done that and the mayor not authorized that, did that mean all of the wonderful work that went into revising this to overrule that disastrous plan would not have been implemented?
That was the argument, I believe, that's the argument that would be leveled against the borough if it wasn't executed by the borough.
Including the veterans' preference for the 100 units on River Road.
Whole ball of wax, the whole thing.
And if those 100 units on River Road were not built in order to achieve
88.
our goal, we would have had 600 market rate units somewhere else?
It's actually 88 units on River Road.
88,
But
okay,
that is
that's
correct.
right.
If the River Road units are not realized, then we end up with all of those other market rate units, and it would trigger
Basically,
reaction.
we would have been back to the terrible plan that nobody, other than one or two folks, and including the planning board, that they came up with.
Yes.
We would have had thousands of more market rate apartment units in Sayreville.
I'm trying to wrap my brain around it myself, why the mayor chose not to sign off on the new agreements that reduces the number of overall units by almost 30%, it's 29%, that allows us to have veteran housing preference, that allows us to potentially buy the one parcel of property referred to as the prime piece of property, reduces the number of school-aged children, reduces the amount of traffic within our town. I can't answer why he would not want to endorse that, but I can't, and I'm glad that my fellow council people
I
agree.
think,
We can't let that
and it
go.
would only be fair to ask the mayor why he didn't want to sign that when he in fact signed, without council authorization, the other deal that would have been so disastrous for the town. So, Mayor, was there a particular reason?
Jim, particularly with you, everything is either political or personal. So just as I accept no email from you or any other kind of correspondence, I'm not going to answer any questions.
You're not going to answer my questions at a public meeting?
No.
Okay. Now, and I understand part of your lack of understanding on this issue is you don't understand the definition of affordable housing. And that was very clearly defined in the pamphlet that I sent to all members of the governing body. I think, in fact, I sent it twice. I emailed it. Mayor, you are one of the folks who said you never read that. But perhaps had you, you would have an understanding of one of the most important issues to face this borough in probably the last 20 years that you and your planning board created and you tried to continue with tonight. So I thank the council for doing what they did. Thank you.
Steve?
Steve Malineski, 28 Scarlet Drive in Portland. I read an article in the paper, the Suburban, about the zoning board and the, I guess, the facility that was going to be non-residential rehab and turned into rehab. Can anybody give us an update on that? Only what I saw was in the Suburban.
Mr. Emma, I think, sits on the zoning board. Can you come up, Steve, and answer the questions about the drug rehab? Phil, rather.
I didn't hear his question.
Can you give me an update on, we saw the article in the Suburban about the rehab facility and how we lost in court versus the way it was supposed to be zoned, and they gave you some dialogue in the paper. I'd like to hear it from the horse's mouth. What happened? How did we move from a senior facility to rehab?
Well, we lost that case. A federal judge basically gave them the application. It's still in litigation, so it's not
I would
complete.
suggest, I'm not handling this litigation, but I did see an email today that there's still drafting,
Right.
the proper orders. So out of abundance of caution, I would not comment on pending litigation. If there's a question, Mr. Malinowski, you can certainly attend the zoning board, but I think it would be unfair for a member of the zoning board to address that answer.
And I was going to say that.
Any other questions? Being no other, Janice?
Janice Benedetto, 1 Thomas Avenue in the Melrose section. I just wanted to say that I was watching Channel 15 on Cablevision this past Friday, and it was the May 29th meeting after it going through like over 2 hours of closed executive session. At 4:55, I was on. Jeff Serenian had just introduced himself. We were starting to get to the meaty part of the questions, and it went to the May 21st meeting. It just cut off right in front of me and switched meetings. So we sat there through all 2 hours of nothing going on and people just sitting around in empty chairs, and it switched. So I don't know, I know we've had more council meetings and there's a regular schedule, but it seems erratic as to how they're placing the dates of the various meetings. So they went from May 29th at 4:55 in the middle of that when they switched to May 21st and started it all over, and it went through 2 hours of executive session and what have you. So I don't know who's in charge of this. I don't know who our IT person is that programs all of this.
That's me.
Okay, so what happened at 4:55?
I don't know. I'll look into it. Maybe the system couldn't handle 5 hours of upload. I'm not sure, but I'll find out.
All right, because it was just at the meaty part and it went, because the Friday before,
I'll find out.
the meaty part came on at 12:30 in the morning.
I'll find out.
Till 2:30. So I was groggy on Saturday.
It may
So,
be possible.
'cause,
It may be possible on the cable TV. There's only so much time allotted for the show. It's probably on YouTube and it probably works, but I'll find out.
Right, but it needs to work for the Cablevision on Channel 15 people too. And it just like switched
I'll find
right
out.
there. So that's what the residents are talking about. You're watching one meeting and, you know,
I believe
and it
I
switches.
believe that was the longest meeting ever on record in Xero history, so I will find out.
All right, but it switched, say, like, what was that then, into 2 hours of it, it should have been able to handle. It was supposed to come on around 2:30.
Switch to another meeting.
Yeah, it just switched to another meeting. It didn't stop. It
I'll
just,
find out.
1 second I was watching one meeting, and the next second, it just switched to the next meeting, like, you know, like if you were, spliced together,
Sure.
yeah.
I'll find out. Did you happen to look at YouTube or no?
No, I watch it on Cablevision 15,
Okay.
so, thank
find
you.
out.
Are there any other questions? Being no other questions, I'll entertain a motion. All in favor? I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Ricky. Good night to Steve.
Good night, Mike. Thank you.
This meeting in Sayreville history.
You like that, huh? I think maybe the cable